Alright, coming in at number 10, we have the haunted Oprah Winfrey Show. What? The Oprah Winfrey Show is famously filmed in the Windy City near the spot of one of the worst boating disasters of all time. Now, this resulted in the largest loss of life from an incident in the Great Lakes. In 1915, passengers were boarding the SS Eastland, which was docked in the Chicago River. Workers from Hawthorne Works were off to a picnic. It was a full boat, and this caused weight distribution issues, and then the boat listed to one side, rolling. This trapped some passengers below decks, others were crushed by heavy furniture. 844 passengers and 4 crew members died in the disaster. The dead were taken to a nearby armory building which served as an impromptu morgue. Fast forward decades and this building is now a warehouse and a film studio where the Oprah Winfrey Show is filmed. Many members of the show's crew have reported seeing and hearing strange things in the building. There have been reports of screams from the doomed passengers and even some apparition sightings. The most frequently spotted ghost is the Grey Lady, who is often seen stalking the halls. Coming in at number 9, there are 12,000 corpses underneath Lincoln Park. Parks, gotta love them. Green spaces, picnics, lemonade, a few cheeky beers, some banter, frisbee, fun times, and thousands of dead people. Wait, what? Yep, that's right. Rumor has it that Lincoln Park is built on an old cemetery, and surprisingly, this urban legend is true. Between 1843 and 1865, there were 4 different cemeteries in the spot where the public park now is. The city was eyeing up a spot for the park, and after the fire of 1871, they had the perfect excuse to start again. While some bodies were exhumed and moved, around 12,000 remained under the park. When the zoo was built in 1962, bodies were unearthed and reburied. With that many bodies, is there any surprise that there have been a number of ghost sightings in the area? Coming in at number 8, we have the legend of Mrs. O'Leary and the fire that killed 300 people. The Great Fire of Chicago is one of the most horrendous things that happened to the city. 3.3 square miles of city burnt from the 8th to the 10th of October 1871. This also left hundreds of thousands of people without homes. The popular legend blames Mrs. O'Leary, you know the song, Late Last Night. Before she went to bed, Mrs. O'Leary, she hung a lantern in her shed, and then the cow, he kicked it over and he winked at her and said, "It'll be a hot time in the old town tonight," right? You know the score, basically. We all know the score. I'm from England and I know the score. Now the problem is, poor old Mrs. Leary never actually did it. She was a poor Irish Catholic immigrant and was made a scapegoat because of Protestant founders of the US being distrustful of Catholics. Also, there was a lot of anti-Irish racism around the time. Reported by Michael Aaron of the Chicago Tribune, he actually was to blame for fanning the flames on Mrs. O'Leary's reputation. But it was already destroyed because people across the world are still singing songs about it today. She was pardoned by Chicago City Council in 1997, as was the cow, but of course it was far too late for them. Nonetheless, the legend lives on today. Continuing with the Great Fire of Chicago, we have the haunted water tower at number 7. In the fire, legend has it that one brave citizen pumped water from the iconic Chicago water tower to try and help quell the flames. The water tower on Streeterville survived the blaze as a result of the man's actions. He proved himself a hero as he manned the pumps instead of fleeing for his life. Then, as the metal structure got hotter and hotter, the flames rose around him. The man knew he was gonna die. Rather than die slowly and painfully, the legend has it that he hung himself from the structure. Legend also has it that sometimes people still see his body hanging through towers upstairs. This has been confirmed by a police officer who saw his body hanging through a window, but then when he went to investigate, there was no one there. Coming in at number 6, we have the Devil of Hull House. Is this the real-life story behind Rosemary's Baby? The story spawned the popular movie, and this could actually be the true-life explanation. The Hull House was a focal spot in the Chicago community. Jane Addams took the building over in the late 1800s and ran it as a woman's shelter. Jane reportedly took in a woman who was heavily pregnant and whose husband had abandoned her. It seems the midwives in Jane's employ would not go near the child after it was born. Why? Because it had a monstrous appearance. The legend states that the baby was born a monster because his father yelled to the heavens in frustration of being given only daughters. He reportedly yelled, "I would rather have the devil in this house than have another daughter." What a man. Jane kept that baby a secret, but one day, 3 Italian women burst into the house and demanded to see the devil baby. They said they knew a baby had been born with pointed ears, a tail, and cloven hooves. The woman caused such a fuss and would not leave until forcibly removed. Then the locals started talking. Soon a crowd appeared at the house and people wanted to get a look at the child. The mystery was never resolved, but there have been many whispers of hauntings at the house. Some people report seeing the devil's face at the window of the house to this day. Coming into number 5, we have the legend of Homie the Clown. Homie the Clown is a classic Chicago urban legend and long predates the creepy clown sightings of 2016. In 1991, there were a slew of reports about a creepy clown cruising the streets trying to lure kids into a red and white blue van with "ha ha" written on the side. The clown was dressed as a TV character called Homie and was said to be offering up candy and money to children who would come with him. The police had a lot of reported sightings, mainly from children. They dismissed a report from 2 10-year-old boys in Oak Park, suggesting that the kids had banded together to troll the police. Nonetheless, this didn't quell the rumors, and a whole epidemic of sightings sprung up over the city. The clown, however, has never been caught. A lot of kids around the 90s in Chicago will remember Homie. Coming in at number 4, we have the machine guns of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre is no urban legend. It was a very real and gruesome morning of bloodshed in 1929 during the gang-riddled era of Chicago. 7 members of the North Side gang were lined up and shot with a machine gun against the Lincoln Park garage. This led to further bloodshed between the Irish Northsiders and the Italian Southsiders, famously led by Al Capone. While legendary, this is irrefutable truth. The urban legend slips in as people claim the Clark Street spot is still haunted by the massacred souls to this day. Civilians report hearing screams in the area. There have also been a lot of reports of animals being freaked out as they pass by the spot. Coming into number 3, we have the knocking ghosts of Flight 191. On the 25th of May 1979, American Airlines Flight 191 crashed moments after takeoff from Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. 258 passengers and 13 crew were killed, as were 2 people on the ground. This insane death toll makes it the worst aviation accident in the United States history. Just as the jet was beginning its takeoff rotation, the left engine separated from the left wing and smashed into the runway, severing hydraulic fluid lines. As the plane began to climb, the damaged left side of the plane produced less lift and caused the plane to roll. This then made the plane crash into an open field by the airport, killing everyone on board. Now, the pictures from the aftermath are truly harrowing indeed. Debris was hurled into nearby trailer parks, which destroyed 5 trailers, but that wasn't all the trailer park would see of the crash. As the years went on, people living at the trailer park have reported frantic knocks at their door, only to open them and find that there's nobody there. One resident reported coming across a worried man who claimed he needed to make a connection. Another man in the area was walking his dog when he came across a man in a suit that smelled of gasoline. He told him that he needed to make an emergency call. Coming into number 2, we have the Italian Bride. Mount Carmel Cemetery is best known for being the final resting place of Al Capone and a number of his gangster cronies. Also resident in the cemetery is the much famed and deeply mysterious Italian bride. The bride wasn't actually a bride at all. She was a young woman named Julia Baccola. Unfortunately, she died aged 29 in childbirth in 1921. Now, she was reportedly buried in her wedding dress, which sparked her urban legend name. Following her death, her mother had a string of wild and vivid dreams that her daughter was not dead. Julia would tell her that she was alive and she needed her help. She had to come to the cemetery and save her. Finally, 6 years after her daughter's death, the dreams got too much for Julia's mother, who had her daughter's body exhumed. When the casket was opened, Julia's body had not decayed one bit since the day she was buried. Creepily, on her gravestone, there's a picture of her body after she was exhumed, and yeah, she does look pretty freshly dead, which really sometimes is the best a gal can hope for. Finally, coming into number 1, we have one of the most popular Chicago urban legends of all time. We have the story of Resurrection Mary. The vanishing hitchhiker. This urban legend is pinpointed to the southwest of Chicago in Justice, Illinois. Since the 1930s, around 30 men who have been driving along Archer Avenue between Resurrection Cemetery and Willowbrook Ballroom have reported being hailed over by a young, blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman in a party dress. Further reports say that she is wearing dancing shoes, a shawl, and holding a small clutch bag. The men that have stopped for her and let her in their car said that she's softly spoken and shy. The woman asks to be dropped off at Resurrection Cemetery, and then she disappears in front of the gates. The legend says that this girl was in the ballroom with her boyfriend in the 1930s, but they got into an argument and she decided to walk home. Sadly, as she was walking up Archer Avenue, she was hit by a car that then sped away. Left for dead, she unfortunately died at the scene, but her spirit is still searching for a chivalrous man to drive her home. Other reports have involved drifters braking suddenly when they see a woman in white in the middle of the road.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have Biringan City. This is a mythical city that's said to lie between the real Filipino areas of Gandara, Tarangnan and Pagsanghan. Here's the thing, it's said to be completely invisible. According to local folklore, the entire population of Biringan City is comprised of supernatural beings. They are shapeshifters who take human form and sometimes invite outsiders like us to visit their city. If you're invited, be aware that time does not move the same in this city. Seconds become minutes, minutes become hours. Some who say they've been there have left to find that they've been missing for weeks when almost no time has passed at all for them. The most common reports of the city come from sailors who claim to have seen a dazzling city of lights on moonless nights for a few minutes. They describe it as beautiful with high-rise buildings and advanced technology. One story said that a Japanese company saw bright tracts of land in the area from a satellite image. Now they thought it was gold and began setting up sites in a nearby town, but mysterious accidents and mishaps forced them to shut down the operation. Invisible City. Do you guys think that's the perfect cover or a little bit far-fetched? Moving on to number 9 now, we're going to talk about the Encanto. Some people say these are actually the supernatural beings who inhabit the invisible city we just talked about. Either way, they are believed to live throughout the whole of the Philippines. The Encanto are mythical environmental spirits that are said to have the ability to appear in human form. They are often associated with the spirits of people's ancestors. Physically, they're meant to look like elves, sirens and other sort of dark magical beings. They are similar to humans, they age, they have males and females, they can suffer from illness and even die. Some appear to be fair in complexion with blue eyes and golden hair. They live in natural homes such as large rocks or trees, but can make these appear like magical palaces to humans. They're enchanting creatures, but everyone who hears the stories knows to avoid them. They can cause fevers and skin diseases or lead travelers into the forest to kidnap them. Next up at number 8 now, we have the Sirena. These creatures are the Filipino version of mermen. They are said to be hideous, with scales covering their entire bodies in colors ranging from brown to green and gill slits positioned in various places so that they can breathe underwater. Their upper bodies vaguely resemble the form of a man, tapering down to the tail of a fish with scale-encrusted legs and webbed feet. Various legends depict them with powerful green tentacles, fins, webbed hands, claws and other appendages. They're also said to have very sharp teeth which make them formidable predators. The scary part is they are hostile to all humans, who they drown in the depths of the sea and then devour as food. Also, many stories involve them causing shipwrecks just to eat the sailors on board. Their bloodthirsty nature, coupled with their extreme intelligence, makes them a terrifying predator. Kind of reminds me of another species we're all familiar with. Next up at number 7 now, we have the jeepney ride. This is a story shared by a Filipino girl about her friend. One day, her friend went home late after finishing off a school project. She took the local jeepney bus because it was late. A jeepney is a popular means of public transport in the Philippines. On the journey, she kept noticing the driver was looking at her in his rearview mirror. She got worried when he began to take turns in the road that he was not meant to. However, she was even more scared of being left in the middle of nowhere and so decided to not say anything. Eventually though, he took them back onto the correct route and they arrived safely at her destination. He turned to her and said, "I'm sorry if I scared you or startled you. It was not my intention. Could you do me a favor and burn all your clothes when you get home?" He continued saying, "The reason why I kept glancing was because your head was not attached to your body when I looked at you through my rear view mirror. That is why I changed my route a while ago, hoping we could get away from this bad energy. And that's why I want you to burn your clothes when you get home, because I think it is still with you." The girl was obviously shocked by this and ran home, quickly burning her clothes in a fire. A few days later, she heard on the news that the driver had died a day after the incident. It was then that she realized the warning in the mirror was not for her, but for him. Next up at number 6 now, we have the Aswang. These are shapeshifters who live among their human neighbors without us ever knowing. They've been described as a ghoulish combination of a vampire and a werewolf. There seems to be no single coherent solid description of what these creatures look like. Some say it's essentially a werewolf in appearance, others say it's closer to a vampire. The only common theme is that the Aswang are always shapeshifters. They live normal lives thrives among villagers, and then at night they change. The Aswang morph into various creatures to hunt their prey, which is usually young children or unborn fetuses, which they suck out and devour directly from the mother's womb. Very gross, I know, but it's part of the story when it comes to these hideous creatures. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Tianak. This is otherwise known as the demon child, and it's another mythical creature in Philippine mythology. They are said to be babies who die before being baptized. After death they go to a place called limbo, which is neither heaven nor quite hell. They are transformed into evil spirits. The phantasms return to our world as these demonic goblin-like creatures looking to eat their human victims. It can also be the offspring of a demon and a human. Most Tianaks are said to live in the forest, where if they do see a human, they will transform into what looks like a normal baby, just lying on the ground. Naturally, most people will try and aid a helpless baby in the forest. When they get close though, that's when a demon child changes back to its true form and kills the helpless human. Next up at number 4 now, we have De La Salle University. This place is known as a place of learning around the country, but locals know it has a lot of dark stories within its walls. The main building is said to be haunted by soldiers who died bloody deaths in World War II. The chapel in this building was used by refugee families, many of whom were massacred by Japanese soldiers. Their spirits are said to live in these rooms they called home for a while. In modern times, students have reported strange happenings in the chapel. One of them involved an accounting student visiting the chapel to pray before a big exam. As he settled into one of the pews, she heard footsteps coming towards her, which suddenly stopped. Then she felt a pair of hands on her face, and when she opened her eyes, there before her was a man in a torn and bloodied soldier's uniform. He had a bayonet through his chest and was gurgling for help through the pool of blood in his mouth. When telling this story to her friends, she assured them she knew it was a ghost, but she had never seen anything so real in front of her and just so terrifying. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the jellyfish blackout. On December 10th, 1999, in the city of Luzon, most of the lights went out. The city was plunged into darkness. Authorities said a large number of jellyfish had been sucked into the seawater intake of a major power plant near Manila, clogging up the mechanism. Reports began to spread that it wasn't just normal jellyfish that caused the blockage, it was giant mutant ones. They had been sucked up from the bowels of the ocean, and as soon as the blockage was cleared, they would begin terrorizing the city's waterways, even lurking in the sewers below people. Some say that's where they remain today, multiplying in numbers. Moving on to number 2 now, we have the duende. These are often called the dwarves of the Philippines. They are mythical creatures said to live in small hills around the country. The mounds are so small they actually resemble ant hills. They come out at specific times, 6 AM, 12 PM, 6 PM, 12 AM, and so on. They have pointed noses, hideous teeth, long white hair, and very angry eyes. They are said to bring you fortune or bad luck. Most people would rather avoid them altogether though. One story of them came from a guy who was burning old coconuts on a farm. It was around 6 PM. He saw something shiny around the bushes. It blinked furiously. As he approached the bushes, something crawled out of it towards him. Standing there was a duende. It offered him a gold ring and told him to keep it, even though he didn't want to. He remembered his mum had told him that if he ever sees anything out of the ordinary when interacting with one of these creatures, just leave it be. Then the creature snapped its fingers and disappeared. Some people say if you take something from them, they will always ask for something in return, and it will be a whole lot of trouble for you to get it. And finally, at number 1 now, we have the Capri. He is also known as the smoking monster. This legendary creature is said to be as big as a 2-story building and hairy all over. It lies dormant in an old large tree in the forest. Generally speaking, they are friendly creatures, but only up to a point. You see, the Capri love to smoke tobacco. They almost always have some sort of cigar burning away. When travelers go to the mountains or the woods, they should be wary of the Capri. If he sees a beautiful woman walking past his tree, he will blow smoke out until it becomes an intoxicating cloud around her. At that point, she will lose consciousness and he will kidnap her. If she tries to fight or if someone tries to save her, the Capri will get violent. Likewise, the way to make a Capri very angry is to destroy his home or indeed any tree in that forest. When loggers mow down a whole forest and smoke is seen spiraling up from the ashes, they say the cloud of the Capri is looking for its next victim. Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Wrestle von Konnersruth. That's a mouthful. This is a mystery surrounding Theresa Neumann, also known as the Wrestle von Konnersruth. She was born in Bavaria in 1898 and lived a life shrouded in mystery and dominated by Nazi persecution. She also built up a devout Catholic following around her who believed she was connected to God. Now, she claimed to have been able to cure herself of ailments on multiple occasions throughout her life. At the age of 27, she was said to have cured herself from appendicitis, and then later on she healed herself from blindness. Then came the stigmata. Wounds began to appear on her hands and her feet in the same places where Jesus would have been nailed to on the cross. She also claimed that from the age of 25 onwards she did not eat or drink a thing. Investigators were skeptical and observed her over 15 days, and they found that she did not eat anything during that time. Opinion is divided on the authenticity of her claims though. Some even believe they happened but are quite fearful of her. To this day though, she still has many adoring fans who are hoping she will one day become a saint. Next up at number 9 now we have the White Lady. This one goes back hundreds of years ago and revolves around a girl named Anna Sydow. The King of Brandenburg, Joachim II, took her as his lover despite already having 2 wives. The two lived happily in the Grunwald, an area just outside of Berlin. They also had 2 children together. Sadly, their son died at the age of 9, but their daughter grew up to be Magdalene of Brandenburg, Countess of Arnberg. When Joachim succumbed to illness, he requested that one of his sons from a previous marriage, Johann, take care of Anna. Johann did not keep his promise. He kept Anna as a prisoner in Spandau Citadel. He married off Magdalene into a forced marriage. Anna remained a prisoner in her tower until her death, locked up and mistreated, with the knowledge that her daughter's life was a misery. She died with anger in her heart. Now, locals say that Anna still wanders the galleries of Spandau Citadel. Visitors report seeing the ghostly figure of a white lady roaming around, unable to leave and seemingly unaware of her surroundings. A morbid turn to this story came just a few years ago when restoration workers found bones in the citadel believed to be Anna's. They gave her a proper burial in the hopes of putting her spirit to rest, but if reports are true, it was to no avail. Next up at number 8 now we have the Children's Crusade. This is a pretty creepy story from the 13th century. Legend says that a German boy was visited by Jesus. Jesus told him to lead a crusade of children to Jerusalem and peacefully convert Muslims to Christianity. He convinced 30,000 followers to join him and led them south towards the Mediterranean Sea. Now he believed the sea would part for him like Moses and they would just walk along the sea floor towards Jerusalem. The sea did not part though, and the children were captured by various groups. Some of them were sold into slavery, others died in shipwrecks, others simply died from starvation or exhaustion. Moving on to number 7 now we have Maria. Maria Renita Singer was a Bavarian nun who became famous in Germany in the early 18th century. If you're thinking she became famous for being an excellent nun, well, you come to the wrong video. She was notorious for being a witch. She became a nun in Bavaria in 1699 at the age of 19. She rose up the ranks and by 1740 she was appointed sub-prioress of her convent. In 1746 one of her nuns, Cecilia, became afflicted with convulsions and claimed to be possessed by demons and poltergeists. The attacks also started to affect other nuns too. One of them even died. At that point people began accusing Maria of being a Satanist and a sorcerer. The Catholic Church then conducted an exorcism during which the nuns rolled on the ground and quote, howled and snapped like mad cats. The investigators searched the convent including Maria's room. They found poisons, ointments and strange robes. They confronted her with the evidence and she confessed. Maria admitted that she was a Satanist and a witch. She said that at the age of 7 she swore herself to Satan. Age 12 she became a prostitute and learned magic and how to mix potions. In 1694 she was baptized at a black mass, and in 1699 she had entered the nunnery to infiltrate and corrupt them. Well, it certainly worked. She was remorseful about what she had done, but the church still found her guilty of sorcery and executed her. Next up at number 6 now we have the Hinterkaifeck murders. In 1922 an entire family living at the Hinterkaifeck farm in Germany were killed by blows from a pickaxe. The parents, their widowed daughter, her children and the housekeeper were all found dead. 4 of them in the barn and 2 of them in their beds. Here's a really creepy thing. The murderer continued to live at the farm afterwards, with the family's dead bodies just there for some time. Police knew this because the animals were still being fed, neighbours saw smoke coming from the chimney, and when they arrived to investigate, the dog was tied up outside the barn. It gets creepier. Before the murders, the family had reported hearing footsteps in the attic. They saw footsteps in the snow that led from the woods to the house, but not the other way, and they also found claw marks on the door of the tool shed. That's where they kept the pickaxe that was used to kill them. The crime was never solved. Next up at number 5 now we have Lorelei. According to German folklore, there was once a nymph that lived by the Rhine River. If you aren't familiar with what that is, nymphs are said to be mythological spirits of nature that usually take the form of a beautiful woman. Lorelei lived on top of a steep rock. She was said to dress in white and wore a wreath of stars in her hair. They said that she was beautiful, but that she also sang a song so haunting and hypnotizing that no sailor could resist her aura. No one who was drawn to her ever returned to tell the tale. Instead, they would be dashed against the rocks. Today, a statue marks the spot where Lorelei has been spotted over the years. Some take it as a warning to turn back before it's too late. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the Rubsal. In German folklore, this is a mountain spirit. He's also a giant. He roams the mountains and is known for his love of trickery. He's friendly to good people and will teach them medicine and even give them presents sometimes. If someone annoys him though, they can expect a harsh trick pulled on them. The legend of Rubsal has been around for thousands of years, going right back to pagan times. They say he is the fantastic lord of weather and is similar to the legend of the wild hunt that we actually talked about in another video. He has great powers and can summon lightning and thunder, fog, rain and snow from the mountain above, even while the sun is shining. He may take the appearance of a monk and sometimes he holds a harp. I'm not sure how scary a harp is, but yeah, there you go. Moving on to number 3 now, we have King Watzmann. As the story goes, this king once ruled the lands of southern Bavaria. He was a bloodthirsty leader with absolutely no regard for human life. Locals said he was an evil man, and they had good reason to think so. Apparently, he and his family enjoyed hunting local peasants. That's right, they rode around just killing their own people for sport. One day though, their terrors caught up to them. After slaughtering a whole family, they were cursed. The whole family was turned to stone for their sins and entombed in the Berchtesgaden mountain range. To this day, locals say the 7 peaks there are actually the 7 members of the family, forever encased in stone. Next up at number 2 now, we have the story of Princess Brunhilde. In Germany's Harz mountain range lies the Rostrap Hill. It's ancient and gnarled, sometimes difficult to climb, but those who do are awarded with an interesting sight, a hoof print in the rock on the cliff's edge. Now legend has it that this is where Princess Brunhilde escaped from a giant named Bodo who wanted to marry her. He chased her on her horse to the cliff edge, at which point her white stallion jumped across and reached the other side, while Bodo jumped after her and plunged to his death. The hoof print in the rock is said to be from the horse launching itself off the cliff. For the locals, it's a dark reminder of the magic that some say still exists in that place and the bloodthirsty giant that fell to his doom. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Sleepless King. According to official sources, the legendary King Frederick Barbarossa drowned in modern day Turkey during the Third Crusade. According to this legend though, he never died, he's just sleeping. People say he still sleeps in a hidden chamber underneath the Kyffhauser Hills. They say he sits motionless at a stone table and his beard has kept growing over the centuries. They say he waits there until his country's hour of greatest need, where he will awaken from his slumber and emerge from under the hill. They say the ravens on the hill is a sign of his presence there, and that if they ever disappear, Barbarossa will be emerging very soon. Now some people might love that sight, others might be a bit disturbed at the sight of a 900-year-old undead king stumbling towards them. How do you feel?
At number 10 we have earthquake weather. If you live in LA, then earthquakes are a constant fear. They happen all the time, and there's always that ominous tension of the massive earthquake that might wipe out all of California. I understand how that can make it hard to sleep, but some people think that an earthquake can be predicted by the weather. There's been a long-standing urban legend that windier days mean an earthquake is on the way. I would just like to debunk this right now and say that this is 100% not true. There's no sort of lead-up weather that tells you whether or not an earthquake is about to hit and a shockwave bubble is going to come out of the Earth's belly. If there were some warning signs, we would all know by now. The basis of this urban legend actually comes from Aristotle's theory that earthquakes were from rumbling wind in underground tunnels. Yeah, so it's a kind of a old-timey idea. At number 9 we have the Santa Ana winds. Throughout LA you might feel a warm blast of the Santa Ana winds. This is from high pressure winds flying across the Great Basin. Scientifically it's a pretty normal occurrence, but there have been legends that say the Santa Ana winds are connected to people going absolutely crazy. It's said that the winds bring dark energy into a person's soul that will make them violent and unpredictable. The winds work their way into your bones and mind and push you over the edge. Maybe all those dark thoughts that you've been having will no longer be thoughts, but that they will become reality. Or it could just be that when it gets a little hotter, people get a little bit more irritable. But the supernatural theory is so much more exciting. At number 8 we have the Colorado Street Bridge. One of the most famous places in the Los Angeles area, this bridge stood the test of time in the rough earthquake environment of California. Even though the bridge stands as a monument to stability, it has actually built a rather poor reputation of building a main place for people to commit suicide. Now this could be because it's a very high bridge and that's all it really takes for a bridge to be a suicide location. But there's a ghostly myth that is attached to it. Apparently in the construction of the bridge back in 1912, a construction worker lost his footing and fell to his death. Not only that, but it said that his body fell into wet concrete, and by the time anyone was able to get to him, he had sunken so deep in that no one could find him. This led to his body being encased in the bridge forever. Now his spirit is forever attached to the bridge, and his spirit is very angry, so angry that it goes out to find suicidal people to come to the bridge and persuades them to jump off. It's scary to think that there's a supernatural force in LA trying to undo all of my expensive therapy. At number 7 we have the Black Dahlia murder. This is one of the most famous murder mysteries in history. The story has been turned into most every imaginable form of entertainment. It was January 1947. A body was discovered brutally hacked in half. The scene was so violent that many of the officers who turned up to the crime scene couldn't hold together and started vomiting. What made this such an interesting case was that the woman murdered, Elizabeth Short, was an actress. This made the story very Hollywood and the media ran with it. It was the newspaper headline that gave this case the famous name, the Black Dahlia murder. An extensive investigation happened, one of the most expensive investigations in all of LA police history, but no conviction was ever made. Since then many people have come forward claiming to be the person who killed Elizabeth Short, but all of these claims have turned out to be false, just killers trying to get a little bit of fame. In terms of urban legends that have followed this, there are hundreds. My favorite being that she was killed by an underground Hollywood cult, that her body was sacrificed so secretive and rich people could perform some sort of sick ritual, but I have already covered that we will never know the truth. At number 6 we have Gravity Hill. It should be no surprise that a place with a name like Gravity Hill has something happening that defies physics. Even though we really don't understand gravity to its fullest, we do know that it makes things move down towards the earth. That's about as good as you're gonna get out of me. But at Gravity Hill and Loma Alta Drive we have something that will make your head spin. If you park your car at the base of the hill and put your car into neutral, it will start to roll uphill. It's said that back in the 30s there was a school bus full of kids that died in a crash, and it's their ghosts pushing you up the hill to make sure you don't die in a horrible car wreck. It's even said that if you leave baby powder on your bumper, there will be little handprints left on your bumper. That's very scary. At number 5 we have Orson Welles in the pink. Here's a fun one for you. There has been an urban legend about Orson Welles that has been hanging around Tinseltown for over 50 years. The legend is that Orson Welles scarfed down 18 Pink's hot dogs in a single sitting. Now Orson was a big man in his later years, but 18 hot dogs thrown down your gut in one meal is pretty impressive. I mean for a regular person. I'm not trying to compare him to Kobayashi or Joey Chestnut.
In the time it takes me to eat one hot dog, Joey scarfs down 10. Here's how
I mean, Orson wasn't getting any world record, which is 74 hot dogs if you're wondering. That is obscene. What would your poop be like after you eat that many hot dogs? It would either be toxic, you need to poop like directly in one of those chemical waste bags, or maybe it just comes out as perfect hot dogs and then they just repackage them and sell them again. I don't know. But back on track, there is no evidence that Orson Welles actually did this. A lot of people think this rumor started by Pinks to sell more hot dogs, and Orson was an easy target because he clearly loved to eat. At number 4 we have the Charred Man. Just an hour drive outside of LA is the Camp Comfort Country Park. You can go there and camp and have a nice little fire and sing along to songs played on an acoustic guitar by someone who doesn't really know how to play them. But if Friday the 13th has taught us anything, it's that a campsite is worth nothing unless an evil force is trying to kill you. And the Camp Comfort Country Park has the Charred Man. It's said that in the forest of the park there is a beast engulfed in flame that will try to kill anyone it encounters. Its origin is unknown, but one of the more popular stories is that a child died in a fire and this is his spirit filled with rage, ready to grab someone and take them down to the pits of Hades. At number 3 we have the Comedy Store basement. The Comedy Store is now one of the most famous comedy clubs in the world, having all the heavy hitters perform there on a regular basis. But before it was a lightning rod for comedic talent, it was a restaurant called Ciro's. Not only was this this place known for great cuisine, but it was also a boardroom for some of LA's greatest gangsters. Famous mobster Mickey Cohen used to hold meetings in the basement, and by hold meetings, I mean he would torture people for information and then murder his competitors. Some employees of the Comedy Store said that they've heard screams from people yelling out for help while they're walking through the basement. That is very unsettling. At number 2, we have the Turnbell Canyon. What makes this canyon so spooky? It's just a very big hole in the ground. Well, lots of things make this place creepy. There have been a history of ghostly sightings all around the canyon. The ghost of a Native American man wandering around with glowing yellow eyes, as well as a ghost wolf said to hunt down anyone walking at night. But the creepiest one is about a cult that used to use the canyon to perform dark rituals. It says that the canyon was the perfect place to perform these practices because it was hidden away from the city, but also because the canyon has a dark energy that allowed the cult to connect to demons and other evil entities. It's even said that the cult would use child sacrifices to increase the potency of these practices. That's dark. And for the number 1 spot, we have the Queen Mary's Door 13. Classic. There are plenty of tourist attractions in LA, and a lot of them have supernatural twists to them. But one of the greatest ones is the Queen Mary, a massive cruise ship that has a ton of hauntings on it. But the centerpiece of this whole haunted boat is Door 13. The door is deep inside the ship, and it's said to have several dark spirits attached to it. And if you think it's lame because who cares about a haunted door, well, I'll have you know that it said that this door has crushed several people to death. That's why I put it as number 1 on this list. A killer door sounds the pitch for a D-level horror movie, but let's see what you say after it decapitates you from sticking your head too far in.
Coming in at number 10, NASA is hiding alien life on Mars. This is a classic and long-held conspiracy belief. For a long time, tin hat theorists have had theories about what is going on our neighbouring red planet and have accused NASA of knowing more than they let on. In the 1970s, NASA sent probes Viking 1 and Viking 2 to study Martian soil, then rovers Spirit and Opportunity to Mars. While everything they found hasn't been released to the public, we do know quite a lot. The theories out there range from mustache twiddling sounding to wacky whack whack. Sometimes I just make sounds instead of saying words. The milder suggestions are that NASA are hiding alien fossils up there. Others say that they're purposefully avoiding looking for life. Others have gone full throttle and have accused NASA of hiding a race of alien human half-breeds up there for the past 40 years. Coming in at number 9, we have the boombox. So word of mouth has it that a NASA engineer has developed a specialist piece of equipment to battle the rising threat of terrorism, and it was being tested out at an airport in Israel. The legend says that NASA tech was used to create a specialist scanner that would detonate any explosive that was within it. So in practice, anyone suspected of wearing a suicide vest could be put in the upright scanning booth, and if they were innocent, they would be fine, but if they had any explosives on them, then they would be detonated in the sealed cell. Snopes have looked into this one, and I'll let you guess what they found. Coming in at number 8, we have the quarantine. It is widely believed that NASA has a strict protocol for people who come into contact with aliens. It is thought that those who report seeing aliens are visited by special secret agents before they leak their news stories. Why? Well, apparently NASA wants to keep us in the dark when it comes to alien life. Conspiracy theorists who believe this often cite the small print of Title 14 Section 1211 of the Code of Federal Regulations, and this actually does say that NASA has the power to quarantine anyone that comes into contact with people or objects returning from space. This is allegedly a safety measure that came to pass in the Apollo 11 era. Although the truth has been manipulated a bit, it makes sense to quarantine people returning from space if they've been outside of their spaceships, because space materials such as moon dust, for example, could contaminate the Earth and mess with our ecosystem. This is of course just a biological precaution, but there are some people out there who have taken this to mean that men in black are coming for you if you so much as see errant lights in the sky. Side note, I really loved Men in Black. Like, I don't think they should remake it, but I'm definitely up for like another movie screening of it. Has it been 20 years yet? Must have been. Coming into number 7, we have the Secret Shuttle. I have to say that this one is a bit of a mystery. It's pretty suspicious. NASA has allegedly had a secret space shuttle in orbit for the past 2 years. What it is up to, we simply don't know, but it has been spotted on a number of occasions by people with long exposure lenses. It is said that the craft, an X-37B, was launched from Elon Musk's SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket at NASA's Kennedy Space Station in Florida. We know that the USA largely considers space a national security risk, so perhaps these secret orbit missions have something to do with that. that. Coming into number 6, we have the UFO live stream. On July the 9th, 2016, NASA was live streaming from the International Space Station when 2 mysterious unidentified flying objects were spotted flying in the background. Weirdly, the stream was cut just as the objects were spotted. YouTube channel StreetCap1 uploaded a video about it, suggesting that it could have been proof of alien life and that NASA didn't want us to see it. NASA spokesman Daniel Holt told CBET that actually the live stream was not cut deliberately, it was just a coincidence. Or was it? A lot of alien conspiracy theorists have taken this as evidence that the truth is out there, but NASA do not want us to know about it. The fact that we haven't solved world hunger, national poverty divides, or even local disadvantage makes this one pretty scary. Coming in at number 5, we have the $1 billion ballpoint pen. A pen that works in space is actually a lot harder to come by than it sounds. It seems that ballpoint pens don't work in space, and pencils aren't great either as they break, and tiny bits of lead just aren't great for floating around in spaceships. The story goes that NASA thought it was truly integral to be able to write in space, so they spent millions of dollars creating a pen that works at 0 gravity in cold conditions. These days with inflation, that figure is said to be $12 billion. That makes it the world's most expensive pen in history. This is crazy because I write for a living, but I haven't touched a pen in months. It seems that there is a shred of truth to this legend. NASA stocked its astronauts with a pen patented by Paul C. Fisher. Now, he invested $1 million of his own money into it, but that doesn't make for such a fun tale. You can actually buy a 50th anniversary edition of said pen, perfect for those planning a trip to space this year. Coming into number 4, we have the fake moon landing. Time and time again, NASA have been accused of faking the moon landing, and if that were true, it would be so scary, not least because of the whole lying to the whole world thing. Why? Why would the moon landing have been faked? What reason would they have for doing this? Well, apparently the reasoning behind the widespread conspiracy is that the United States wanted to win the Cold War, but honestly, winning the space race to the moon was kind of risky. It kind of stoked the fire a little bit. Theorists say that the whole thing was filmed in a studio and that NASA and the American government wanted to manipulate minds of the world into believing the USA was the greatest country. Basically, it was one very expensive piece of propaganda. How far would the government go to get people to believe the lie? Well, again, according to theorists, the CIA and NASA were involved in destroying evidence and murdering witnesses. Do I believe this? No, I don't. But if it were true, then it would be one of the greatest lies and biggest cover-ups of all time. Coming into number 3, we have aliens during the moon mission. While the majority of people do admit that NASA did manage to get to space and land on the moon, a lot of people think that they haven't been honest about what they found. Rumour has it that during the Apollo 10 mission, astronauts heard alien music as they orbited the dark side of the moon, and others say that Buzz Aldrin spotted alien activity during the Apollo 11 moon landing mission. The astronaut himself has since denied it. Coming into number 2, NASA wouldn't tell us if we were doomed. Or so they say. NASA knows a lot more than we do when it comes to the fate of our planet. Face it. The average human has never looked through a telescope, let alone had the ability to understand and monitor what's going on around our planet for thousands and thousands of light years. We know that a supervolcano could erupt and devastate countries and states, a tsunami could sweep an ocean village away forever, a tornado could rip through the heart of a country, etc, etc. But we only know about these things because we're told in advance. Without being told in advance, we would only find out when it was too late. The same thing goes for asteroids and astronauts and flying bits of space junk, or even wilder, alien invasions. NASA would know about life-altering asteroid collisions long before it happened, and while it's likely that something would be assembled to try and stop it, belief has it that the space organization would not tell us if we were doomed for fear of inciting panic or anarchy. Finally, coming into number 1, NASA is creating a black hole that will kill us all. We know that black holes exist out there in space, but the nearest one to us is thousands of light years away. Because we know so little about black holes and what happens on the other side of them, there are scientists out there trying to replicate the conditions on Earth. It seems that this possibly could be done using the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator, the Large Hadron Collider. Hearsay and rumour have it that NASA are trying to make a black hole using the 17-mile-long collider, and if they did, the world could be sucked into a giant vacuum of nothingness. In actuality, NASA have nothing to do with the collider. It's a project by CERN, the European Organisation for Nuclear Research. Also, guys, you can sleep safely for now. The Collider project is on hiatus for 2 years. So thunder is a very big part of most Native American cultures, and this legend comes from the Cherokee. At number 10, we have the Thunder Boys. Okay, there are actually 2 concerning Cherokee myths and legends about thunder. One is a legend that involves so-called little people who cause sharp claps of thunder that can then cause lightning strikes near women, which then, in turn, causes them to be impregnated with another little person who's destined to be born and continue the lineage of small thunder people forevermore. Creepy, right? The most popular legend is of the Thunder Boys though, the sons of the first man who live in the Earth's cliffs, mountains and waterfalls. The Thunder Boys bring rain which also bless the Earth, but they can also choose to harm people and bring about mischief. I love a bit of mischief. How about you? Next up, a legend that is very close to my adopted home in Toronto. Coming into number 9, we have the Dragon of Lake Ontario. According to the Seneca people, there is a fire-breathing dragon that lives in the rivers and lakes of Canada, but most prominently in Lake Ontario, so I better watch out when I'm on the Toronto Islands over the summer. I might be snatched up by Gasienditha. Yes, it's a tongue twister and a big monster. Gasienditha was thought to have travelled to Earth in a meteor and landed in the lake that sits amid the border of the USA and Canada. The story of the dragon permeates both Native American and early settler history. Back when Toronto was called York and Canada wasn't even its own thing yet, European settlers noticed something going on in Lake Ontario. Was it a giant snake? Was it a trick to the eye? As the 1800s progressed and the city that would eventually become Toronto developed, more reports of a huge 30-foot snake in the lake just kept on surfacing. It seems the old Snakey in the Lakey liked to swim too. He was spotted in Kingston, Ontario, leading to the popular legends of Kinksty. Sure enough, the Seneca had called it long before the 1800s. Today, many cryptozoologists think that the lake monster could be some sort of relic plesiosaur, a large long-necked marine reptile still alive. The last time someone spotted Gasienditha was in the late 1960s. Is it still out there? Has anyone seen it? Let me know. Coming into number 8, we have the legend of the animal's revenge. So, I hate to break it to you, but according to the Cherokee anyway, animals are not happy with us, and honestly, I guess who could blame them? The people of the Cherokee still exist today, and they originated in the Appalachians. It's my absolute dream to hike the Appalachian Trail one day, like I feel it in my bones. That being said, I'd need to do my best to appease the animals. It is a long-held native belief that once upon a time, animals and humans lived in peace and harmony. Back then, the power of all animals, including humans, was far more equal. But then the human population started to swell, which meant that we got a lot stronger. Legend has it that the animals met to discuss what they would do to protect themselves. It's said that a council of deers and bears met and decided to bring plague upon hunters who killed for sport rather than need. A council of birds, insects and small animals concocted infectious diseases to spread to humans too. Now luckily, the plants are on our side, and they vowed that for every disease created by the animals, they would in turn create a cure. Sadly, there's no cure for human weapons like bullets and knives though, eh? Just a good old-fashioned hopeful stitch 'em up. Coming into number 7, we have the ancient burial grounds. Ancient native burial grounds. Don't mess with them. This is an enduring urban legend across America and basically the premise of the movie Poltergeist. There are many a ghost story that come from the building upon sacred ground, usually by big corporations who disregard the scare stories surrounding the land that they think is going to be profitable. One example comes from Rock Rimon in Colorado Springs. It is alleged that a McDonald's was built on an ancient burial ground and an old Native American settlement. The Rock Rimon restaurant in question has been haunted by an angry-looking Native American man with a dour face. Apparently the disgruntled ghost turns on taps, jangles keys, and produces phantom screams. Although I would say it could be a bit worse. There's not the whole TV sucking jelly thing. Coming into number 6, we have the bearers of bad news. Beware the owls, or so say the Cherokee. Owls are actually a very important part of a lot of Native American cultures. The owls, man. The owls are not what they seem. Did anyone else watch Twin Peaks? I personally love a good owl. It seems that the Cherokee people think that they're messengers, but not just any messengers. Owls bring about bad news or bad luck. For the Apache people, dreaming of an owl signifies an approaching death, and to the Cree people, answering an owl with a whistle and then hearing no response is another signifier of death. These owls, baddies. Coming into number 5, we have the ghost dance. The ghost dance is a relatively new religious movement that has been incorporated into a number of Native American beliefs. The dance was established in around the 1890s in accordance to the teachings of the Wavaka. The dance, which is still performed today by the Caddo of Oklahoma, is intended to reunite the living with the spirits of the dead, bringing the spirits back to fight white colonists and bring about peace and unity for the tribes. It is thought that by performing the dance, people can bring about a new world, which sounds nice. Coming into number 4, we have the ice giant Chenu. The legend of Chenu comes from the Wabanaki people, and it is somewhat similar to the legends of the Sasquatch or the abominable snowman. Chenu is supposed to be a huge Bigfoot-like creature that lives in snowy plains. He was once a human who committed a horrible crime, which led to his heart freezing and him being turned into a troll-like monster who cared only to kill any human that he could find. All love and compassion is just a distant memory for this ice-cold baddie. Coming into number 3, we have the water panther. Ooh, this is another one from near my hood, although a lot of First Nations people across America believe in the water panther, not just the people of the Algonquin. I've been to Algonquin Park a few times, and I have to admit, it is pretty freaky at night. I wrote a whole blog post on my website about a night spent under a full moon in the park, which was actually very horrifying in many ways. But luckily I never encountered the water panther. The Cree, Algonquin and Shawnee people believe that there is a water monster, a giant-like dragon feline who dwells in rivers and lakes, who waits for humans to come close and then pulls them down and drowns them in the murky depths. The panther is said to have a tail that can hold stuff too, making it even better at killing. There is indeed a lake called Panther Lake in Algonquin National Park, which I feel like I should probably stay away from next time I do go back. I'd also probably stay away from Bandit Lake and Mouse Lake too, because ugh. Coming into number 2, we have the ghosts of Wounded Knee. The Wounded Knee massacre took place in Pine Ridge in Wounded Knee Creek on December 29, 1890. It seems that Spotted Elk, a leader on the US Army's list of troublemaking Indians, was stopped by officers who forced him to relocate with his people to Wounded Knee. The next morning, the US Army opened fire when one deaf member of a small Lakota tribe didn't relinquish his weapons. 23 United States soldiers died, mostly from their own friendly fire, and a whopping 153 Lakota, mostly women and children, were also killed too. These days it is said by those who still live and work around the cabins and community of Wounded Knee that they can hear the cries of women and children echoing through the canyon, especially in the winter. Finally, coming into number 1, we have He Who Must Not Be Named. This is kind of like a Native American Voldemort style thing. Now I know that J.K. Rowling's Dark Wizard is a work of fiction, and even if he wasn't, I'm a Slytherin and I fancy my chances in a cheeky duel, but I don't know about invoking the spirit of a dark soul eater from the Choctaw tribe. They have a name for it, but I'm not gonna say it, because if the Choctaw avoids saying it at all costs, it seems like maybe we should respect that. It seems that this soul eater is a shadow who permeates into people's bodies, filling them with evil thoughts and depression. Eventually, it creeps into their very souls and eats them alive. You absolutely do not want an encounter with this shadow spirit, so don't say his name.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have Agrasan Ki Bauli. Legend says that this was built by the legendary King Agrasan. It's an old, traditional stepped well with 3 levels and 103 steps. Many people consider it the most haunted place in Delhi. Visitors report a dark feeling washing over them when they stare down the levels into the water below. For many years now, locals warn of the black water that is found at the bottom of the well. They say it has powers, that it has the ability to hypnotize people and lure them over the edge where they then fall to their deaths. Some say the spirits live in the well, perhaps responsible for drawing people to their deaths, or maybe they are the spirits of those who have already died. The place is closed to the public at night, but that hasn't stopped some dark tourists from wanting to climb the walls and see for themselves if the suicidal pull of the well below really is true. Next, number 9 now, we have the Onion Witch. First of all, what a great name. In 2005, parts of Delhi were in absolute panic when a witch was said to be prowling the streets at night, and she was thirsty for blood. The witch, or sometimes 3 of them, were turning up at people's doors and asking them for an onion. That's a pretty strange request, but one that most people were obliging towards, especially given how creepy these witches were. A housemaid experienced this and said, when you give her an onion, she cuts it in half and blood starts dripping. Then you die instantly. Another witness said, "She is an evil soul. She can disguise herself as someone you know." As you'd expect with stories like this, people were scared and they wanted to defend themselves from the witches. They say that only a palm print in turmeric or henna on the door can ward off the evil witch. Because of this, it wasn't uncommon at the time to see yellow handprints on houses all over the city. Although the rumours have died down in the years since then, some still say the Onion Witch stalks the streets waiting for a gap in people's defences. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the White Lady. In Delhi, Kant, locals talk of a mysterious woman in white. They say she is seen at night, wrapped in a white sari, trying to hitchhike with any drivers who pass through. Those who have heard the stories will know not to stop and to give her a lift, for she is not of this world. She waves at people to catch her ride, but those who stop for her are never seen again. Even if people don't stop, they say that she runs after the vehicle at inhuman speeds, matching the speed of the car until the driver has left the area, at which point she disappears into thin air. Then there's the people who actually stop to ask her for directions. They say those people are then unable to find their way home for the entire night, going in circles around the city, completely lost until morning. There are a few theories about who this spirit was in life. Some say her life ended tragically, that on her last night on Earth she asked some men for a lift to somewhere else in the city, raped and beat her in a moving car, and then dumped her body at Delhi Kant. Ever since that night, her vengeful spirit has been stuck in a sort of death loop, asking for a lift and repeating the events of her death each and every night. Moving on to number 7 now, guys, we have the Jamali Kamali tomb. Jamali was the alias of Sheikh Jamali Kambo, a saint from the pre-Mughal era. Kamali was an unknown person buried next to Jamali. Their tomb has become the focus of a number of paranormal stories over the years. Shalatia was a Delhi University student who once went to explore the area with his friends, and he said, "I have heard that one gets to hear screams and slaps of angry spirits at Jamali Kamali." Another person in the park, a jogger, said, "After moving to Delhi, my brother used to jog here with me. One day he was alone, and while crossing Jamali Kamali, he felt a pat on his back. He stopped coming after that." Now, although that sounds pretty creepy, from what I've heard, he got off lucky. Other people have reported being fully slapped on the back, only to turn around and see nothing there at all. Next up at number 6 now, we have the Hindu milk miracle. In 1995, it was reported that statues of Lord Ganesh were drinking milk in Hindu temples. It all started when a worshipper in Delhi held a spoonful of milk close to the trunk of the idol and were amazed to see it disappear. The news spread like wildfire across the country as many people began to report the exact same thing in their own temples. From there, it spread around the world. Before long, temples in the UK, Canada and the US were reporting the exact same phenomenon. Many Hindu organizations announced that a miracle was happening, made by the will of Lord Ganesh. Some scientists have claimed that the reasons were perhaps not spiritual but could be explained by science. They said the milk drinking was caused by a mix of surface tension, the capillary effect and confirmation bias. Others disagree and say this miracle could happen again at any time. What do you guys think? Moving on to number 5 now, we have Feroz Shah Kotla Fort. Built in 1354, this structure used to be the headquarters of a dynasty that ruled over northern India. In the centuries since, its power has dimmed into a eerie silence. Locals say that spirits now live among the many dark alleyways and ruins there. This belief is so ingrained that every Thursday, locals can be seen lighting candles and incense sticks in the darkest spots of the fort. There, they lay offerings of milk and grain to appease the spirits, hoping that they grant their wishes. As this tradition spread and became more popular, it seems to have had a sort of inverse effect. It's said that these spirits stay in areas without many people around and naturally seek out darkness. The ever-increasing visitors are now said to be driving them away, perhaps into even darker parts of the surrounding area. Coming at number 4 now, we have Sanjay Van. They call this place the Haunted Forest of Delhi. In a crowded city, it is eerily quiet. Some say this park is actually an abandoned graveyard that was used in ancient times. Now, despite its size, the park is relatively empty. Over the years, deep superstitions have developed about the forest, with locals swearing that it's haunted. Of all the creepy tales of spirits rising up from the graves, one of them stands out in particular, the Sari woman. People have seen her standing by the side of the road that goes through the forest. She is said to walk among the banyan trees before disappearing into thin air. Some reports say they've seen her hanging from her neck by the trees. This is actually how they say she died, hanging from the very same trees to end her life. In an interview, one local said, "She comes alive at night when those leaves start glowing. There are many such lovely spirits here." Yeah, he described her as lovely. I mean, I'm glad people can see spirits hanging from trees and think that's lovely, but I think I'd take the long way around that park if I saw that. Next up at number 3 now, we have the Monkey Man. In 2001, the Monkey Man was the talk of the town. He was said to be a hairy hominid creature that stood about 5 feet tall and was jumping between buildings. There was panic everywhere. Eventually, he began attacking people in their apartment blocks. Enough people saw him that a description began to be built up. Eyewitness accounts tended to describe the creature as wearing a metal helmet with metal claws, glowing red eyes, and 3 buttons on its chest. Many people reported being scratched, and a few people even died when they leapt from the tops of buildings or fell down stairwells in the panic brought on by the creature's sighting. Although it's been a fair few years since these bizarre events, some say the Monkey Man is still out there, he's just got a lot better at hiding. Coming at number 2 now, we have Kuni Nadai. That name directly translates to Bloody River, so you already know what you're getting into with this one. The small stream flows in West Delhi near the Rohini district. Locals believe it's haunted after many years of unusual happenings and mysterious incidents there. People rarely go near the water, and only if they absolutely have to. Legend says that if anybody touches the water, the stream will suck that person in instantly. Locals say it's happened several times in the past, however, people are divided on what exactly makes the stream haunted. Some say that spirits have always lived in the water there, dragging people to their deaths. Others say that in the past the stream was a popular suicide spot, and that the evil in the water is actually spirits of the dead who have now returned as ghosts. Residents also claim that they hear the sound of screaming and crying near the stream after dark. Whatever the reason for this, many people simply choose to find a different crossing. And finally, number 1 now, we have Karkaduma Court. We're going to finish on a more modern one here, guys. In September 2014, lawyers working at Karkaduma District Court returned to work one morning to find that all the computers were switched on. When this kept happening every single day, CCTV footage was reviewed. To everyone's shock, the computers were seen switching on by themselves, sometimes even when they were unplugged. Some lawyers began leaving the chambers and refusing to enter the library at times. Legend says that the spirit of another lawyer haunts the building. They say he lost his life in the floods of 2012. Many believe that it's his spirit that causes the chaos in the building. Paranormal investigators have visited the site numerous times and even claim to have taken a photograph outside the deceased lawyer's chambers that reportedly show an apparition that resembles him. What do you guys think about this? Would you refuse to go to work or school if this kept happening?
Coming in at number 10, we have the dinner ghost of the West Village. I love the Village in New York. Not only is it, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful parts of this city, it also has some of the nicest restaurants. I've never eaten at 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, but it is said to be a beautiful old carriage house dating back to 1767. The interior seems romantic, and at first glance, the scariest thing about this famed eatery seems to be the price of dinner. But things get a whole lot spookier. In fact, the old building is said to be haunted by not 1 but 20 ghosts. When speaking to New York's Eater magazine, manager Roseanne Martino said that she'd seen a lot of ghostly activity, including picture frames tilting, flickering lights, and even plates flying off tables and smashing on the floor. She even said that some waiters have tried to take orders from guests sitting at tables only to find that there's nobody there. Some paranormal investigators believe that a few of the 20 ghosts are famous too. One ghost could be that of former Vice President Aaron Burr, and another a former Broadway starlet who likes a candle to be lit for her. Coming in at number 9, we have the Asylum of Roosevelt Island. If you've got a spare $4,000 to $5,000 American dollars a month to spend on rent, then you could be lucky enough to live in the Octagon building on Roosevelt Island. Not only would you need to be wealthy, you also need to be pretty fearless, as the former lunatic asylum is said to be haunted. The island itself is a stretch of land on the East River between Manhattan and Queens. It used to be known as Welfare Island because of the number of hospitals and institutions on the spit. The building was abandoned for nearly 50 years from 1955. That was until it was turned into apartments. Residents of the building have occasionally come across spectres, but it is widely reported that pets categorically do not like the stairs. Dogs will regularly stop and bark at seemingly nothing. Do you want to be stuck on an island with ghosts? No, I don't think you do. Do you want to hear more about Roosevelt Island? If so, good. If the haunted ex-asylum didn't warn me off sufficiently, I have to say the old smallpox hospital is the icing on the spooky cake at number 8. Once again, in the middle of the East River stands the Renwick Ruins, where over 30,000 people died of smallpox. I suppose it made sense to treat people with a disease as contagious as smallpox on an island away from the majority of the city. Despite the area of quarantine, think what the dying people must have thought as they were trapped overlooking the city, filled with people they loved but they just couldn't touch. These days, the former 18th century Gothic-looking hospital stands completely abandoned and in ruins. Spotlights light up the terrifying old building at night, making it look extra specially dramatic. Locals don't feel good about the place, with many reporting ghostly sightings. The building's rep hasn't been enhanced by popular culture either. In Marvel's Hellcat, the hospital is taken over by a witch and her evil minions. This is a quirky little urban legend at number 7. We have Manhattan was sawn in half. What a strange urban legend, I really like it. So it goes that out there in New York City, once upon a time, part of the island of Manhattan was sinking. The story was told in scholar Benjamin Botkin's 1976 book, New York City Folklore. He said that in 1823 or 24, a contractor by the name of Lozier noticed that the southern end of Manhattan was going to sink. The only remedy, it seems, was to saw the island completely in half, turn around the southern half and reattach it. Elaborate. Apparently all of the labourers of New York got involved in the project, turning up in their swaves to save the city. Only it turns out when they turned up for work, it was all an elaborate ruse by Lozier, who had disappeared. Why is this scary, Rebecca? 2 reasons really. Okay, so imagine if it was true and the only way to stop a city from sinking was to cut it in half and then reattach it backwards. I'd be worried. Also, imagine being convinced that the city was going to sink only to find out that it was all a cruel joke. You'd want to punch old Lozier, wouldn't you? What a card. Coming in at number 6, we have the Empire State Building being a car killer. Driving in New York City is scary enough, but in Manhattan, urban legend has it that the Empire State Building is a kind of Bermuda Triangle for cars. For some reason in 2008, it seems that cars started breaking down within a 5-block radius of the iconic 1930s landmark. We all know about Ford Mustangs on the observation deck of the Empire State, but has this car juju sent out weird vibes to jealous on-road vehicles? The New Yorker even wrote an article about the phenomenon in 2008, saying that cars' engines would simply die and their locks would malfunction, but when they were towed away from the building, they'd miraculously work again. The AAA breakdown service was saying it was happening to at least 4 cars a day. Speculation has it that the weird juju is actually coming from a giant cluster of antennas at the top of the building. Okay, next we're gonna have a little fun down on Coney Island at number 5. Legend has it you'll get stuck on the Coney Island cyclone. You may or may not live to tell the tale. Okay, not only may you get stuck, but you guys may also have to delete your footage of it. I love Coney Island. I went in 2016 and had all of the fun. In Coney Island's Luna Park, you can ride on one of the world's oldest roller coasters. This, honey, is still made from wood, which actually terrifies me on a whole new level. The 91-year-old roller coaster is an official New York City landmark and has only seen 3 deaths in the last 35 years, so, you know, semi-safe. That being said, it has garnered a reputation for being the most dangerous roller coaster in America. For me, riding an old roller coaster is scary because, I mean, it's old, wear and tear and all of that. Legend has it that if you ride this wooden dinosaur, there is a high chance you'll get stuck at the top. I didn't, but on Perez Hilton's website, he shared some snaps of some people that did. Terrifyingly, it seems that they had to walk down the tracks to safety. Worse still, there are rumors that the park will ask you to delete your footage if you capture a breakdown in action. Like, what is this? Nonetheless, I do still think it's worth a trip to Coney Island because it's really fun. Coming into number 4, we have the eerie legends of Grand Central's Whispering Wall. Grand Central is beautiful, isn't it? According to local legend, there is one part of Grand Central Station that you can stand in and hear a person whisper from the opposite side. It must be pretty spooky to stand in a place and hear a disembodied voice whispering beside you. Apparently the phenomenon occurs near the Oyster Bar and restaurant, and if you're standing under 4 archways in the lower concourse, you are able to whisper to people 10 meters away. They can be facing the opposite direction and still hear you. This actually makes for perfect spy chat. Apparently during construction in the station, something happened to disturb the acoustics, rendering the whispering walls defunct. Luckily though, now the construction's over, the whispering walls are back in action. Can you even imagine what has been whispered into these walls if walls could talk? I mean, I bet they'd have some juicy gossip. Coming into number 3, we have the headless ghost of Brooklyn Bridge. I think that Brooklyn Bridge is absolutely beautiful. The bridge that connects Dumbo in Brooklyn to the southern tip of Manhattan was built in 1870 and has seen its fair share of wanderers. Not only that, a number of construction workers died during building the bridge. There are a lot of urban legends when it comes to one of New York City's most iconic landmarks, not to even mention the Cold War bunker that was found on the site. The most prolific tale, however, is that of the headless ghost who wanders up and down the bridge at night. The headless figure is reported to be that of a worker who was decapitated in 1883 as a cable snapped and took his head with it. Concerningly, the bridge is also a popular suicide spot. Side note, when I was on Brooklyn Bridge a few years ago, I was alarmed to look up and see a lady with a huge snake standing there, like, get that snake off the bridge. Apparently, she's often there charging tourists for pictures, but really, I could live without a snake on a bridge picture. Coming in at number 2, we have the legend of Sid and Nancy and Room 100. New York has seen its fair share of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and often, we know how that ends. In 1978, New York was shocked and mystified by the death of Nancy Spungen, the girlfriend of punk rocker Sid Vicious. Sid was an English rock and roll star who rose to fame as the bassist of the Sex Pistols. Nancy was a groupie who became involved with the band and Sid after being expelled from the school and travelling to London. The young woman wasn't very well liked by the public, as the media always crucified her. They portrayed her as being lewd and rude and outrageous, just like her boyfriend. When the Sex Pistols split in '78, the pair moved into Room 100 of Hotel Chelsea in New York, where they spent their days getting high. One October morning, Nancy was found dead with stab wounds in her stomach in the pair's bathroom in their hotel suite. Sid was arrested for her murder but died of a heroin overdose before he could stand trial. Who actually killed Nancy is up for debate, with many saying it was a botched robbery. Others speculated that she was killed by her dealer. Some even say that stand-up comic Rocket's Red Glare killed her. The case was closed but never solved, and a lot of people still wonder today. On top of that, many rock and roll tourists like to visit the Chelsea Hotel to see if they can feel the notorious couple's presence. Finally, coming into number 1, we have legends of the mole people. So in part 1, we talked about sewer alligators and crocodiles, but this time we are chatting mole people. When the New York City subway opened in 1904, stories of underground dwellers started circulating, but it wasn't until the 1990s that mole fever swept the city as first-hand accounts started becoming widespread. It seems that a lot of citizens think that there are communities of people living in the lost tunnels of the subway. There were a lot of rumors about these dwellers back in the day. Some say that they can see in the dark and that they speak their own language. Some even went as far as to say that the dwellers were cannibals, outcasts from society. So it turns out that there are people living down there, but very few people, and generally speaking, they're down on their luck, homeless people desperately trying to avoid being hit by trains. Nonetheless, that doesn't stop the people of New York City talking.
Starting off this terrifying list, in at number 10, we have Duayas, or otherwise known as the myth of a deadly temptation. This is a story about a beautiful, charismatic female demonic spirit who visits neighborhoods in search of finding her next victim. She is disguised as a beautiful looking woman, so men are easily drawn and attracted to her. Once she is able to entice them and lead the men to an abandoned location, she changes her form into an ugly looking demon who brutally murders her victims. She is said to have 2 donkey legs that she uses for speed and agility, and her hands are made out of sickles, which are used to slice open her prey. And she also has the eyes of a cat so that she's able to see better in different lighting conditions. The moral of this urban legend is for men to not be easily attracted to the beautiful strangers, because you never know what they're capable of doing. The Quoreen takes its number 9 spot on this list. The Quoreen is another type of demonic creature that is very similar to a genie. They can have a master who controls them because they're in possession of the Quoreen's heart. These awful creatures are known to be excellent shapeshifters who will take on the form of a person's deepest, darkest desire in order to seduce them. Once you fall victim to the Quoreen, they will brutally kill you, and the only way to kill the Quoreen is to stab them in the heart, but this is extremely difficult and you will probably die trying. Besides shape-shifting, they're also telepathic and extremely strong. They are naturally very evil and powerful, and they know every detail about you. So that means that they know all of your greatest fears, your weaknesses, and also your darkest secrets. So they can easily trick you, they can blackmail you into doing pretty much whatever they want. The haunted house in Jeddah crashes into number 8. Saudi Arabia is known to have a lot of houses that are haunted by demonic spirits, and actually, a lot of people living in this country are scared to move because they fear that their new house might be haunted. So I guess it's safe to say that Saudi Arabia is not unfamiliar with haunted houses, but this house in particular is on a whole other level. The most haunted house of Jeddah is located just 100 meters from the sea, and it has a notorious reputation. Taxi drivers don't even dare to drive near this house, and people say that if you get close enough, it acts like a magnet and you cannot escape it. According to the local legend, if you stand in front of the house during the day, you can actually feel your blood pressure increasing and small shocks into your body. So kind of feeling like you're about to die and you're being electrocuted with a taser. If the locals are aware of this urban legend, then why do they still visit this house? I would be writing a letter to the mayor to have this house demolished, and I would never go see it with my own eyes. Genie terrorizes the list in at number 7. According to the urban legends of folklore, jinn are supernatural spirits that are very skilled at shapeshifting. So these evil creatures take on human or animal forms, or they can even live in inanimate objects such as trees, rocks, and underneath the earth. They aren't immortal, so they can be killed, but they're free from any form of physical restraints. They love to torture and punish humans, so they are said to be the ones behind many diseases and all sorts of accidents such as natural disasters or road accidents. They are known to cause a lot of destructive mischief, and they love to watch humans suffer. There are different types of jinn, and depending on their classification, they have a bunch of different powers that are all harmful or damaging to humans. Bent El Karsa sneaks into number 6 on our list. She is also referred to as the daughter of the speechless, because her lips have been stitched together because she is being punished for something sinful that she did. It is believed that she likes to kidnap men and force them to marry her. She has the ability to kill without any weapons, and she's even able to kill you by tickling your flesh. Apparently she has these long fingers, and she enjoys tickling her victims so that they'll hysterically laugh until they die. I mean, wow, this woman sounds like a complete nightmare. This sounds like the worst way to die. I would never want to be tickled to death. If I saw this woman with her lips sewn shut, I wouldn't be sticking around long enough for her to force me to marry her. The Naz creeps onto this list at number 5. What the heck is this? Well, this horrific looking creature is a hybrid between a human being and a demonic spirit. This unfortunate crossbreeding resulted the Naz to be in half a human body and a demon spirit. Yes, that means he literally looks like an evil half human. Even though the Naz only has one leg and one arm, they are extremely agile because they use their tails to help them with their balance and movement. These evil creatures would disguise themselves as decrepit old men who would try to get others to carry them over passages of water. Once the Naz successfully enticed their victims to help them, they would change form and drown their victims in the water. These terrifying creatures are also known to easily murder a human to death by only using their one hand, and because they're missing half of their vocal cords, they aren't able to speak, but they are able to emit an ear-piercing noise that is supposed to be dreadful to hear. And depending on the volume and the tone of this screeching noise, you would be able to tell what the Naz is feeling. Ghouls force their way into number 4. These terrifying creatures are known to feed on decomposing corpses, and they can be found in the tunnels located underneath graves. The ghouls have been a part of Saudi Arabian folklore for a very long time. Ghouls are known to be excellent shapeshifters that prey on unsuspected victims who are looking to cross the desert. Ghouls are very resilient and resourceful creatures who will transform into a desirable woman in order to allure these men, where they would viciously kill them or they would mate with them. Obviously, ghouls have a very bad reputation, but things get even worse. They are known to be repulsive looking creatures who enjoy kidnapping people and feeding on their flesh. They are even able to absorb the traits of a human that they eat, such as memories and appearances. Apparently, the only way to banish a ghoul is to recite the line from the Quran. The haunting of the Al-Qasimi Palace spooks us in at number 3. Every horror movie that has a possessed or haunted house looks like this one. Except, unlike the movies, this house has a dark past, and it is rumored to be very sinister. The palace was abandoned back in the 1980s after the owner stayed there for only one night. They claimed that the house was full of paranormal activities, and they couldn't live there anymore. Since the palace was abandoned, curious people have wandered around the mansion searching for ghost activity and supernatural presence. People are reported feeling impending doom, sounds of a woman crying through the halls, and they've also seen children peeping out of broken stained glass windows while crying. According to the legend, you don't seek the way to the palace, it will find you in time. The legend also claims that if you visit this haunted palace on a night with the full moon, something awful is gonna happen to you. So my advice would be stay far away from the palace if you guys live in Saudi Arabia. Apparently, even if you search the name of this palace into Google, you are doomed. So I guess I'm in a lot of trouble because I just did the research for this video. Yeah, if you don't see me in a video very soon, call for some help. Up next, number 2, we have Abu al-Salasal. This scary looking man is also known as the Man of Chains. This is a very popular urban legend that has been circulating in Saudi Arabia for many years. It is about an extremely ugly humanoid that is covered in chains. He often uses these chains to attack his prey, and it is also believed that he is one of the most powerful demonic spirits in Saudi Arabia. He is most active at night, and it is said that if you hear him walking with his chains, you're supposed to get out of the area immediately, or you have a high probability of dying. The Abu al-Salasal craves human flesh, and he won't stop haunting humans until his craving is satisfied. The urban legend says that he is completely fearless and he might even follow you into your home. Okay, so a real witch tops this list in at number 1. Witches and ghouls are very popular urban legends in Saudi Arabia and even everywhere else in the world. Well, witches are women who are thought to have evil magical powers that have the potential to harm or kill people. So what if I told you guys that there was a real police encounter with a witch? I would be calling BS on this one, but let me know, do you guys believe in witches? Let me know in the comment section below. But before you guys decide, I want to show you guys this clip.
Look there!
Okay, is this real life right now? I don't know what to believe. I'm a little torn. The 2 Saudi Arabia police officers came across this creepy looking witch in a hostile military area where no civilians were able to go to. And based on their reactions, they seemed legitimately terrified. I think I'm gonna have nightmares about this scary looking hunched over witch for a long time. I mean, she was chasing after this car for so long. Something isn't right here. Do you guys think that this video is real or fake? I'm leaning towards it is 100% real.
Legend of the Shadow People. Light and dark have long been associated with goodness and evil throughout history and across cultures. Shadow people are supposed to be the embodiment of evil from the dark side, the other side. Humans have perceived shadow people throughout history, but more recently we have given them the name of shadow people. In folklore, these are interdimensional beings that have the ability to shapeshift and travel into our dimension. Shadow people are usually tall and sometimes have glowing red eyes. Generally, shadow people simply stalk or observe with a threatening unspoken intent. A late night talk show on Coast to Coast AM held a lengthy segment on shadow people in 2001, and one of their hosts interviewed a Native American elder called Harley Swift Deer Reagan. Throughout the show, listeners were encouraged to send in their drawings and experiences of shadow people, and the response was overwhelming. There are a lot of psychological explanations for seeing shadow people, including sleep deprivation or sleep leading to the phenomena of pareidolia. This is where the mind responds to a stimulus by making you see things that aren't there, like figures or faces. Is the presence of shadow people simple science, or is there something deeper and darker going on? Can the rest of the numbers on this list be attributed to shadow people, or are they something else entirely? Coming in at number 9, we have black mass ghosts. Whether or not you believe in ghosts, there have been countless reports of people seeing ghostly apparitions over history. Usually ghosts are described as being white, grey or see-through, but some have reported seeing dark ghosts like shadows. These are often referred to as black mass ghosts. Paranormal investigators tend to agree that these apparitions are different to regular ghosts. Some people think that these ghostly apparitions are ectoplasms or ectomists. They're kind of like emotional stains left on the world from people who have died in high emotional circumstances like historic battles. Some go as far as to say that these black mass spirits are negative imprints left on the world from angry spirits. If you see a black mist or a shadow, you should steer clear. Coming in at number 8, we have the shadows of Zombie Road in Missouri. The road running through Wildwood in Missouri used to be called Lawler Ford Road, but it has been known as the Zombie Road since the 1950s. It's even been abandoned since the 1970s. Even when the road was in use, people simply didn't like it. Eerily, they said it never felt the same length or looked recognizable. Sometimes it would seem to go on forever and get narrower. Since its decommission, the road has been at the center of many urban legends. Along with the classic Killer in the Wood legend, many people have reported seeing shapes and shadows along the road and in the trees that surround it. Those that hike or bike on the road as part of a woodland trail, a popular spot in the spring through to the fall, report seeing human-shaped shadows along their routes. The trail is closed after dusk, which has led to a lot of locals asking why that is exactly. Coming in at number 7, we have the legend of Dudley Town in Connecticut. Dudleytown in Connecticut is often referred to as the Village of the Damned. The town was founded in Cornwall, Connecticut in the 1700s and has been abandoned since the mid-1800s. Why, you ask? Well, local legend says that the town is cursed and is haunted by sinister black wolf-like shadows. It all seems to stem back to the founders of the town, the Dudleys. The Dudleys were reportedly related to Edmund Dudley, an English nobleman who was beheaded for plotting against King Henry VII in the 1500s. It seems that his act of treason brought a curse upon his family, who saw mysterious misfortune and a spate of deaths and suicides. Reportedly, to try and rid the family of the ill fortune, the Dudleys emigrated to the New World, moving from Guildford, England to Cornwall, Connecticut in 1748, thus establishing Dudleytown. Legend has it that the bad luck manifested itself in the form of dark shadows, and it followed them over to the United States. The town saw disaster beyond belief, and this led to a number of suicides and disappearances of the remaining Dudleys. The rest of the residents left town, and you know what? I can't blame them. The more recent urban legend that started circulating in the 1980s says that if anyone who visits the ghost town today steals anything from the town, they too will be cursed with the shadows like the Dudleys. Now, local historians have refuted the link between the Dudley family and the English nobleman. However, as the town has been closed to the public for a good number of years, the mystery and legends live on. Coming in at number 6, we have Slender Man. Ah, the legend of Slender Man. It was only a matter of time until he cropped up in this list. Now, most of you watching this video will know who Slender Man is, but for the benefit of those that don't, he's a big old scary shadowy creep. Stories of Slender Man surfaced in 2008 in the form of a creepypasta, but he is drawn from real life folklore, especially from Eastern European tales. Slender Man is said to be very tall with no face. He often wears a suit and a tie. He's mainly seen watching you from the shadows and lurking, waiting to kill you. Good lad. Sometimes he appears as simply a shadow, sometimes he has tentacle arms. He may sound like a bit of a joke, but in 2014, a pair of young girls conspired to stab their 12-year-old friend so that they could win the trust of Slender Man. Coming into number 5, we have shadow puppets. Shadow puppetry as an art dates back to the first millennium BCE in Asia. Now, it's not clear whether it first originated in China or India, as both have long since used the art form as a medium of entertainment. Shadow puppetry then spread into Islamic and European culture. Now, shadow puppet plays have been known to be dark and mysterious, and in some countries, especially India, they have deeply religious connotations. The central theme pretty much of all shadow theatre is a battle between good and evil. It's thought that during the plays, the gods, if they're entertained and appeased, would protect the audience from evil. As the shadow puppets are so deeply rooted in ritual in the spirit world, there's something quite scary and supernatural about them. I just don't trust them. Coming into number 4, we have Hat Man. The Hat Man is possibly a shadow person with a particular love for male millinery. The man appears to be a worldwide phenomena, with many reporting seeing dark apparitions across the world. Now, he is distinctive due to his fedora-shaped hat. Other than his hat, no details are ever distinguishable. He's seen as a pure shadow with no features. People report dreaming of this dark shadow as much as they do seeing him lurking in the shadows. The correct course of action, should you see the Hat Man, according to urban legend anyway, is to control your fear and to forcibly tell the shadow to leave. He isn't welcome. So don't run and hide then. Coming into number 3, we have the mystery of shadow bands. Here, science meets urban legend, and I love me some science. There is a known phenomenon that occurs during a solar eclipse. So basically, during a solar eclipse, the moon passes between the sun and the earth, momentarily blocking out the sunlight. During the eclipse, when the sun has narrowed to just a little filament of light, shadow bands form. Now, these are strange grey ripples that flit over the ground and buildings, creating a distorted-looking reality. During some eclipses, the bands are vivid, but during others, they're barely visible. In a 1970s eclipse visible from the United States East Coast, the bands look like jail bars in Greenville, North Carolina. They're really difficult to photograph too. Now, there are a number of explanations for the bands, varying from single slit diffraction, but others do think that they have a far spookier and much more mystical explanation. A lot of people even report feeling deep unease when they see them, although this is probably just down to an unnatural lighting state, probably. Coming into number 2, we have the Dark Watches of Santa Lucia. Originally known by Spanish settlers as Los Vigilantes Oscuro, the Dark Watches are a legend in Santa Lucia, California. Described as tall, sometimes giant-sized, featureless dark silhouettes, they're often adorned with brimmed hats and walking sticks. It is possible that the Dark Watchers are a variant of the classic Shadow People. Over the years, the Watchers have frequently been spotted in the Santa Lucia Mountains watching passers-by. Now, the figures are mainly spotted around twilight and dawn. No one's ever seen one up close, and it is said that if a person ever does, they will disappear. Back in the 1960s, a high school principal reported seeing a tall man with a hat watching him as he led a group hike. When he called out, the figure disappeared. Now, scientists offer a number of different explanations for the sightings. Some say they could be Brocken specters, which basically happen in certain atmospheric conditions when the sun's over a particular angle. Others say they could be fatigue-based hallucinations. Alright, here we are, the big guns. Number 1, this freaked me out so much I've put it at premium spot on our list. Coming into number 1, we have the Walking Sam suicides. Between December 2016 and March 2017, a staggering 103 suicide attempts were made on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. Of these attempts, 9 people between the ages of 12 and 24 died. The reservation, home of the Sioux Native Americans, was blighted by a cloud of death, as they put it. Oglala Sioux Tribe Vice President Thomas Pawbear said that the parents of the reserve had come to him telling him that there were nooses hanging in the trees. Eventually, it was reported that a tall man spirit was appearing to children and convincing them to kill themselves. The apparition is said to be 7 foot, lean with no mouth, and carrying bodies of Lakota men and women in his arms. Now, this wasn't the first time that Walking Sam had appeared in the area. In 2009, he was alleged to have been spotted in Pine Ridge, which coincided with multiple teenage suicides. In 2013 and 2015, he was said to have shown up again. When local records were examined, it seemed that he may even have first appeared in 1974 near Jefferson, South Dakota. Now, that's around 360 miles away from Pine Ridge.
Starting us off at number 10 is information. Now, TikTok is a Chinese company owned by ByteDance, and in its privacy policy, the app lists all the information it collects on its users. That includes the person's IP address, location, a mobile carrier, unique device identifier, keystroke pattern, and more. In 2020 of this year, Checkpoint research found out that hackers can easily get into the app and gain access to the user's accounts. The CEO of Reddit even called the app spyware and parasitic, claiming it's always listening to us. I mean, then again, the same could be said for Apple phones. They're listening to us all the time, but because Apple is an American company, no one's gonna say anything. Regardless, people believe that China is using the app to gain access and information about as many people as possible in a quest for global domination, which, I mean, come on. Coming in at number 9 is racism. You cannot escape it in real life, and you certainly can't get away with it on TikTok either. Well-known TikToker Emma Lou was loved on TikTok for being relatable, funny, and vocal about her struggles with body image and mental health. She solidified herself as one of Nicki Minaj's biggest fans after rapping her verses flawlessly, but all that love came crashing down. Someone posted a video of her yelling the N-word out of her car window, and thus commenced the Cancel Emma Lou party. And she's not even the only one being exposed. Even bigger TikTokers like Mattia Polibio and Chase Hudson have both been exposed using that word as well. And honestly, I'm okay with people getting exposed. You don't get to be racist on a giant platform and get away with it. I'm sorry. Not on my watch. At number 8, we have The Predator. 27-year-old Buddy Haynes is essentially this bald dude on TikTok who garnered some fame after a video he posted dancing to Good Girls, Bad Guys went viral. But his other content was weird. He would dub scenes from 50 Shades of Grey, and in one he even said girls don't want someone who's good looking, they want a Batman in the streets and a Joker in the sheets. He's been accused of being a predator and pedophile, and everything came to light when a girl going by the username VBitHoji said he had messaged her saying some pretty nasty things and that she was only 14 years old. She said he initially started talking to her about cosplaying on Instagram, but then after finding out her age, he started sending her videos of him licking and biting his lips. He goes on to say he wishes he was in a relationship with her and even sends her shirtless videos of him. Then other underage girls started coming out with similar stories about him messaging them, and then of course, what could he do except use the biggest scapegoat excuse online, which is someone hacked into his phone and messaged all these girls. But he then said, I was drunk when I messaged the first girl, and it's like, alright mate, really? The FBI then visited him over concerns about him speaking to underage girls and basically didn't do anything other than tell him to stay inactive for a while. Filling our number 7 slot is the false takeover. Now everyone thinks TikTok is taking over the world right now, and honestly I don't blame you. When we went to Playlist Live a few months ago, I thought it would be full of YouTubers, but it was actually full of TikTokers, all of which seemed to be under the age of 16. Despite everyone thinking TikTok is the must-join platform right now, only 3% of people aged 18 and over in the US have used the app. 3%, that is nothing. Furthermore, a lot of companies are convinced that TikTok is the new way forward in terms of advertising, but in reality, only 4% of US marketers actually plan on using TikTok for their brands. People also assume the app is exponentially growing globally, but 44% of all its downloads are from India. So I mean, TikTok taking over social media is an urban legend in and of itself, because it's just not true. Now, at number 6 is ignorance. A few weeks ago, Nessa Barrett made a TikTok dancing to a verse from the Quran. She claimed she had no idea what it was and just wanted to make a dance for fun, but the backlash over it has been insane, and I would be pissed if it wasn't. Rightfully so. I don't think anything has pissed me off this year more than this, not even COVID. Like, how ignorant do you have to be to do that, and how of an app does this have to be that it doesn't even filter its users' content before it gets uploaded? It's disgusting, and there should honestly be some sort of filter on this app, and there just isn't. And that's why these dumb people are getting such a large platform when they shouldn't be. Coming in at number 5 is national security. The Peterson Institute for International Economics is convinced that TikTok is a threat to Western national security. Legally, say the Chinese government asks ByteDance for its data, they are actually unable to refuse. The founder and CEO of ByteDance even said he wanted to further deepen his cooperation with the Communist Party of China and wanted to promote their policies. In December of last year, the US Army and Navy banned TikTok from all government-issued devices. Then the Australian Defence Force followed suit. On top of that, there's a legislation that was introduced in the US Senate that would result in the prohibition of downloading and using the app for all federal employees. So this is going to a state level, like policies are being made about TikTok. At number 4 is @CalebCanDance. The account run by Caleb Zukowski has about 400,000 fans, and his videos, which you can probably tell from his username, are of him dancing. A scandal arose about him and how he asked for and then shared explicit photos of a 15-year-old girl and was sending other inappropriate messages to underage girls. Fellow TikTok user Radical Seb was actually the one who outed Caleb and posted screenshots of these alleged messages. According to the messages, he asked for pictures of her collarbones, which is quite weird. Caleb defended himself by saying the conversation was a joke between him and a 17-year-old girl he knew personally, and that it was taken out of context. Regarding the nude he supposedly leaked, he claimed it was sent by an 18-year-old girl that he was romantically involved with. He even backed himself up by having screenshots of said girl confirming she was of legal age when the photo was taken. Now, I feel like it's hard to know who to believe in situations like this, because it's easy nowadays for people with social media fame to just get away with what they want, or twist things, or worse comes to worse, just blame a hacker for their mistakes. At Buddy Haynes. Filling at number 3 slot is the death tracker. You thought doing it for the gram was bad? People are out here risking their lives for TikTok. People will do anything for internet clout. It's actually insane. There's a TikTok death tracker that looks at all the news around the world and calculates how many people are dying due to accidents during filming a video. The most recent one took place on the 11th of March in India when a man got crushed by a tractor while trying to do a stunt for the app. The first ever death recorded due to the app was also in India when a young man committed suicide after being bullied for dressing up as a girl in his videos. As of today, there have been 53 deaths and 29 injuries, which I feel like is 53 deaths and 29 injuries too much for this app. Now, at number 2 is the algorithm part 1. Now, an AI did an experiment on TikTok's recommended algorithm to see how it suggests new users based on race. Mark Fadul, a researcher at Berkeley, noticed that after you follow someone and you click the arrow that recommends other accounts, the other accounts tend to look like the person you just followed, like I'm talking about race and ethnicity specifically. Despite TikTok denying a racist mechanism built into the algorithm, they did say that they use collaborative filtering, meaning it'll recommend the following of the people who follow the account that you just followed. So for example, say you just followed Addison Rae, it would recommend other people from the Hype House rather than TikTokers that look like Addison Rae. And finally, at number 1 is the algorithm part 2. Furthermore, it's not just race that plays a factor into the algorithm, it's looks, body, and how able you are as well. The app is more likely to recommend you if you're good looking, in good shape, and are not disabled, which is the most non-inclusive criteria I've ever heard of. How is that even fair for anyone involved, and how does the app judge whether you are attractive or not? Looks are subjective. You could be a 10 to me and a 0 to someone else. How does an AI know? And now it does this so the app looks better to a new downloader because it's filled with beautiful people, but honestly, this just irked the shit out of me. I hate it.
Coming at number 10, we have the Super Mario Shadow People. Super Mario Galaxy is a game known for pure fun, bright colours, familiar faces, and a whole lot of bouncing around on little stars. It's also gained a reputation for featuring the Shadow People. At the beginning of the Shiverburn Galaxy level, strange shadowy figures can be seen at the top of the cliff in the background. Now at first, many people brushed this off as just people's imagination running wild. Then someone took the initiative to look through the game files. They found that the name of the background image is called Hell Valley Sky Tree. Who said anything about Hell Valley? The internet exploded with conversation about this. Who were these shadow people, always watching you, even though you can never get any closer to them, and nobody even mentions them in the game? Some people have tried to explain these away as just trees, but others say, I ain't seen no tree that looks like that. It's one of those things where if Nintendo actually acknowledged it, it may not be so creepy, but the fact that they have still refused to means people are left wondering who the shadow people of Hell Valley are. Next up at number 9 now, we have the Hall of Tortured Souls. This is a well-known Easter egg that was hidden in the coding of Windows 95. Deep in the software, there is a hidden game there. Nobody knows who found it first, but this is how you find it. To enter the game, go to Microsoft Excel 95. Open a new blank Excel worksheet. Go down to the 95th row and select the whole row. Tab over to column B, go to Help/About, tap and hold Ctrl Alt and Shift, and then click the Tech Support button. Then the game will appear. It's called Hall of Tortured Souls. Players use their arrow keys to move in 8 different directions. Eventually, you will find a staircase. The walls are surrounded by text with the names of the creators on. On the next level, there is a small room with red walls. Again, the names of the creators will flash up on the screen. Go down a bit and enter the room where you were before. Type the magic word XLKFA. Another room will open where you have to follow zigzagging black paths. Eventually, you will find the end of the game. A picture of the developers of the software. The whole thing is a little bit unnerving. Even though the game has been discovered and completed at this point, many people are creeped out by its name, Hall of Tortured Souls. They feel there may be something much darker hidden deeper in that game. Maybe one of you guys will be the one to find it. Next up at number 8 now, we have Polybius. Some call this the most dangerous video game ever made. The story begins in Portland, 1981. A local arcade hall was attracting more visitors than normal. All the games were busy, but only one had a long line of people wanting to play it. A new game, Polybius. The players couldn't stop playing it. When they were finally forced off it, they began to act strangely. They said they felt nauseous, stressed, and had terrifying nightmares. Others had seizures. There were even reports of all the madness forcing people to suicide. The one common thing that everyone felt was that they were unable to control their own thoughts anymore. Then people began to notice that the game was being serviced a lot more than usual. Other games might get checked by technicians maybe once a month, but Polybius was being checked every single week. Men in black suits would come, record its data, and then leave. They would never take the coins and seemed to have no interest in the money it had made. After a while of this, the mysterious arcade game vanished as soon as it arrived, taken by the very same men in suits. People believed that the men and the machine were from the CIA, that it was all part of a mind control program, an experiment that was sending subliminal messages to players. So, was there any truth to this? Well, that's the faith you kind of need to put into the story. The story has been repeated and spread for almost 40 years now, but it's very hard to verify as the arcade machine and the men who monitored it disappeared without a trace. If this program has continued to modern times though, perhaps they've just got better at hiding their experiments in your games. Next up at number 7 now, we have the ghost of GTA 5. It's been almost 5 years now since GTA 5 was released, and by now it seems that players really have discovered every last secret and Easter egg the game has been hiding. One of them does stick out as a lot more creepy than others though. Near the peak of Mount Gordo there is a flat rock on the ground which bears the word Jock written in blood. Between 11 PM and midnight in the game, the player can see the ghost of a woman appear near the rock with long black hair and wearing a white dress. She is said to be the ghost of Jolene Cranley Evans. She was the wife of Jock Cranley, a famous stunt double in the game from years ago. Story goes that she didn't want to move from their home near Mount Gordo to the city of Los Santos so that Jock could pursue his stunt double career. He took her up for a walk on the mountain and pushed her off, where she fell to her death. He was arrested but released due to lack of evidence. Now she haunts the mountain in the game. If players go to a nearby campsite, they can hear screaming or an incomprehensible whispering sound which, if played backwards, says, "Let's see your shot." The final creepy thing is that if you try to approach this ghost, she will vanish straight into the night. Next up at number 6 now, we have Luigi is dead. There's something you Luigi fans never want to hear. However, there are clues in some Super Mario games that he really is. In Luigi's mansion, during the blackout that happens after the boss battle of Area 3, Luigi journeys to the telephone room and answers 2 calls. During these calls, while Luigi is holding the phone to his ear, the player must wait until there is a lightning flash, and then they will see that Luigi's shadow has been twisted into a way that looks like he's been hanged. Now, some people say this shadow is the metaphorical shadow of a much darker game that was actually meant to be released, or that they just forgot to take this part out. Others say this was intentional and a nod from the developers to the fact that Luigi has been dead for many years now. He killed himself after always having to live in the shadow of his more popular and famous brother. Nintendo says it's just a glitch, but others say that's just a cover-up, and as much as Nintendo fans don't want to hear it, Luigi is dead. Next up at number 5 now, we have Lavender Town. Those of you that have played the original Pokemon games on Game Boy may already be familiar with how creepy the Lavender Town theme music is. I mean, the whole town is based around dead Pokemon. That's kind of the point, but there is a story that goes way deeper and darker than you know. Following the release of Pokemon Red and Green, there were a number of reported child suicides in Japan. When players got to Lavender Town, the music had a strange effect on them. Let's hear it really quick as a reminder. People said the song was created with a hidden code in it that would drive children to kill themselves. Subliminal code used very high frequencies, ones that only young kids can hear and not adults. This became known as Lavender Town Syndrome. Supposedly, 200 children committed suicide in Japan because of this, and many more developed illnesses and afflictions. The children who committed suicide usually did so by hanging or jumping from heights. Those who did not succumb to the suicidal pull still complained of severe headaches after listening to the Lavender lavender town theme. According to the legend, the developers in Japan were forced to fix the song's frequency to be at a lower frequency before international release. That's the safe version that you and I and many other people have heard. They say the real version can still be found out there, waiting for its next victim. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the Xbox voices. When the Xbox was first released in 2001, it was praised for its power and cutting edge technology. Microsoft didn't really want to waste all of that when the console wasn't being used, and so they added some ambient noises which played while it was idle. These noises started out normal at first but quickly got very strange. People said it kind of sounded like the console was channeling voices from the dead. Naturally, people wanted answers from Microsoft. Was this some sort of subliminal messaging? Was it supposed to influence dreams when players fall asleep with the console on in their room? Well, the company said it wasn't actually even their own music. It was public domain audio from NASA transmissions from the Apollo missions. For those of you that don't know, these were the missions that went to the moon. If you think you can handle it, I'd recommend listening to the whole thing. People report hearing robotic voices, whispers, and even Halloween music. Either people are seriously imagining things, or Microsoft and NASA have some explaining to do. Next up, number 3 now, we have Kill Switch. This game is just straight up creepy if it does actually exist. You see, back in 1989, this game was released in which the player had the choice of playing either a Ghast or a Porto. It was nearly impossible to play as Ghast because he was invisible, which meant that almost everyone chose Porto. Items you found appeared at the bottom of the screen. You find pieces of a tape recorder and could listen to events that transformed the mine you're in into the hell that it became. The game was eerie, hollow, empty, confusing, and just creepy all round. But the weirdest part is yet to come. The story goes that if anyone does complete the game, Kill Switch is designed to self-terminate. It deletes all traces of itself on the person's computer like it was never there at all. This is bad news because only a reported 5,000 copies were ever made. Apparently this continued to happen until every last copy was wiped and the company who made the game vanished from existence. A small community of people are trying to replicate the game based on the stories they've heard, but it's slow work and many people feel it's not worth the trouble it could ultimately bring. Moving on to number 2 now, we have Herobrine. Any of you guys who have played Minecraft will surely have heard of this character. When you first play the game, you'll have the ordinary standard skin. Now one day, early in the game's history, a player said he spawned in a brand new single player world. He was playing the game as normal, mining and building, when he saw something moving amongst the dense fog. He thought it was a cow and so chased it. It wasn't though. Staring back at him was a character that had the default skin, but his eyes were empty. There was no name above his head. He double checked to make sure he wasn't actually in a multiplayer server, and he wasn't. The character quickly ran off and disappeared. As the game went on, strange things kept happening. Parts of the game looked like someone had actually been there before, even though this was single player. Every once in a while he claimed to see the strange doppelganger watching him from the fog. After posting this story to the forums, he received a message from a user called Herobrine. It simply said, "Stop." Eventually he and some others found that Herobrine was the name of a Swedish player, possibly the brother of Notch, who is the creator of Minecraft. They asked Notch if he had a brother. He replied, "I did, but he is no longer with us." Thus, the legend was spawned of the creator's dead brother living on in the game's coding, watching players, watching every player, unaware of the afterlife he's ended up in. And finally, number 1 now guys, we have Berserk. This was a very popular arcade game, first released back in 1980 and was a great success and highly addictive. However, it will always be remembered as the first game to be linked to the deaths of some of its players, 3 to be precise. The first was said to be Jeff Daly. He allegedly entered his initials twice in the Berserk machine's top 10 players list before dying of a heart attack. His score was 16,660. People say if you remove the binary numbers of 1 and 0, you get 666. The next victim was Jeff's friend, a guy called Peter Bukowski. Now according to the arcade owner where this machine was housed, Peter arrived and began playing Berserk at 8:30 p.m. He was a top student who hoped to become a doctor one day. He was also very good at arcade games. After 15 minutes of playing, he posted his initials next to 2 high scores on the leaderboard. He then took 4 steps away, put a quarter into a different game, and then collapsed dead from a heart attack. The third death was said to happen to a guy who got into a fight over a quarter that was meant to be put into the Berserk machine. He was stabbed to death. Of course, people began to connect the dots and became convinced that this arcade machine had something to do with all the deaths. It's rare that a kid dies during or just after playing any video game, but 3 all connected to the same one. You can see why the legend of Berserk has has persisted.
Alright, so kicking things off just like that, in at number 10, we have The Vanishing Hitchhiker. This is a story about a young girl who was trying to make it back home. A man driving down a quiet country road saw her walking and offered her a ride. She asked him to take her home, but they told her that they were on their way to a dance which was in the opposite direction. They asked if the girl wanted to come with them, and she agreed. After the dance ended, the boy offered to take her home, so they got in a car and started to drive. He walked her to the door, but a woman answered. She said that the girl was her daughter, but she'd been dead for 12 years. She was killed in a car accident, and she was buried in a nearby cemetery. Apparently this ghost can be seen on rainy nights along lonely country roads. Although she seems harmless, I wouldn't pull over and offer her a ride. The UBC hitchhiker comes into this list at number 9. Over in Vancouver, Canada, it is believed that if you drive along University Boulevard, you'll probably run into a dangerous hitchhiking spirit. According to the local legend, a woman will ask a man for a ride, and once she gets into the car, she will give the driver a note, and then bam, just vanish out of thin air. It's like a Thanos snap happened. Well, that's not creepy at all. Some people have reported seeing this woman on the side of the road, soaking wet and really distressed, while others say that she's really quiet and mysterious. I really want to know what the note says. Maybe it's a warning to not pick up hitchhikers. The red-headed hitchhiker takes our number 8 spot. There are some places in the world where you should never ever attempt to hitchhike. There are a lot of dangerous people out there who only want to kidnap you or throw you into human trafficking. One of these places is known as Route 44 in Massachusetts. The legend of the red-headed hitchhiker goes something like this. Drivers will pick him up after they see him wandering on the side of the road. He will only get in the back seat. The driver will ask where is he going, but he won't give you a response. He will only point straight. After traveling in complete silence, he will suddenly begin to giggle, which turns into a sinister, manic laugh. The driver usually threatens to kick him out of the car if he doesn't stop, but then in an instant, he will just disappear. But although he vanishes from the back seat, you can always hear his evil laugh whenever you get into the car. The Browning Road hitchhiker pulls into number 7. In Delano, California, there is one road there that no one should ever travel down, and that's because there is an evil hitchhiking ghost that can be found on Browning Road. The spirit of a young lady who died there decades ago haunts this lonely road. If you are brave enough to drive down it, you might come across her angry spirit. She is known to lash out on those driving down this creepy road. She might even appear in the backseat of your car. Some people say that they have been choked by her and they've lost control of their car. So yeah, if you appreciate your life and your car, you won't ever drive along Browning Road. Unknown terrorizes us in at number 6. If you guys have ever been hitchhiking, this next story will probably make you never want to stick out your thumb again. A 17-year-old woman was hitchhiking at night when she was picked up by a strange man. It was a snowy night and the man seemed quiet and friendly at first. But at one point, they came up to a hazard on the road and the woman yelled, "Watch out!" The man yelled back at her and said, "Never scream at me ever again." She immediately wanted to get out of the car, but she refused to pull over. Finally, he pulled into a gas station and she quickly got out of the car. He threw a note out of the window and it said, "If you want to live again, don't tell anyone about me and never hitchhike ever again." Well, that's probably the creepiest note I've ever read. I think it's time for this girl to get her driver's license and invest in a car. The Orange Socks murder crashes onto this list at number 5. A woman was out one night with her close friends at a local bar. She called her husband to let him know that she would find her own way home. But the thing is, she never made it back home. The next morning, her husband went out looking for her and he found her body in a remote field. She had been shot to death and she was only wearing one orange sock. 6 months later, the body of another missing woman was discovered in a wooded area, and she was also shot to death and assaulted, but she was also wearing the other matching orange sock. So what is going on? It is believed that the killer had picked up these two women at different points throughout the night while they were hitchhiking, and he murdered them in cold blood. But what makes this story even more scarier is the fact that it's a true story and this case remains unsolved. Is this real life right now? So this orange sock killer is still out there on the loose, and he's probably still on a murderous rampage. Up next, number 4, we have the Walhalla hitchhiker. Lara Stevens was a pilot who loved to fly his small plane near Walhalla, South Carolina, but during one of his flights, he ran into some bad weather which caused him to crash into the mountains. His body was never found, but he was presumed dead. According to the local urban legend, people who are driving down Road 107 will see a young male hitchhiker on the side of the road. They say that you should pull over and offer him a ride, or he will get very angry and cause you to crash your car. Once you pick him up, he will tell you where he wants to go, but then he will vanish into thin air as soon as he gets out of the car. He will only leave behind water and mud in your car. Well, that just seems so damn rude. And you know what, note to self, don't drive down this road after I get my car detailed and cleaned. Or maybe I should invest in some floor mats. Resurrection Mary climbs into this list at number 3. This is a story about a young girl named Mary who was on her way to a ballroom party with her boyfriend. On their drive, they got into a huge fight, so she got out of the car, but she was struck by a truck and she immediately died. She was buried at the Resurrection Cemetery that was near the crash site, and now it is believed that if you drive along this road, you might see a young girl in a party dress who is trying to hitchhike. If you let her into your car, she will ask you to take her to the cemetery. You aren't supposed to refuse or she will kill you. Once you make it to the cemetery and she gets out of the car, you're supposed to drive out there as fast as you can, or else she will try to drag you into an empty grave. I mean, that sounds pretty damn terrifying. Carl Eder makes it onto this list at number 2. This is a story about a 16-year-old kid named Carl Eder who was hitchhiking in California. He was homeless and desperate for a ride. That's when a friendly man took mercy on him and decided to pick him up and take him back to his home where he can have a shower, a decent meal, and a place to sleep. The boy stayed there for 6 weeks, but when the man returned home one day from work, his whole life came crashing down. He discovered that his wife and their 4 kids had been brutally murdered. Is this real life right now? Carl Eder told the police that he was angry because the youngest kid was irritating him, so he decided to stab everyone in the house. This is just so messed up. Carl Eder was arrested and sentenced to 2 life terms, but he escaped from prison and he has never been found. And also, I think I forgot to tell you guys that this is a true story, and if I were you guys, I would lock all my doors and never pick up a hitchhiker ever again. The girl in a box brings us to number 1. We've saved the scariest for last. We've done it again. This is more of a cautionary tale than an urban legend, and I think we all know how dangerous hitchhiking can be by now. But in case you find yourself inside of the road sticking out your thumb, just remember this story I'm about to tell you. Colin Stan was a young teenager who was trying to hitch a ride to her friend's house. She thought that she was a really good hitchhiker because she knew when to turn down rides. But when a blue van pulled over, she saw that a man and a woman were in the car and there was a baby seat in the back. So she thought that it would be a safe ride because, well, they're parents. What's the worst that can happen? Well, she was very wrong. Shortly after picking her up, the man held a knife to her neck and forced her into a head box that weighed 20 pounds. But that's not where the torture ends. She was kidnapped and held in their home for 7 years as a slave. She was forced to stay inside of a wooden box that was kept underneath their bed for 23 hours a day. She was constantly being tortured and abused for those 7 years, but she eventually escaped and was brought back home. I mean, what an intense story to end off this video.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have The House That Kills. Along the Venice canals there are expensive houses that are snapped up whenever they go on the market, all except for one. Its name is Dario, sometimes called the House That Kills. It was built in the late 15th century for Giovanni Dario, Secretary of the Venetian Republic Senate. When he died, the house was inherited by his daughter and her husband. After a while, the husband lost all of his possessions and was stabbed to death, while the daughter killed herself by drowning in the canal. They had a little boy who ended up being killed by assassins. The Venetians were shocked by the 3 violent deaths and started to think the house was cursed as it was built on an ancient cemetery. Others said it might be the the inscription on the floor, which read Giovanni Dario in honor of the city genius. In Italian, that's actually an anagram of who will live in this house will be ruined. In the 19th century, a descendant of the family sold it to a rich diamond merchant who quickly lost all of his wealth and died shortly after. The next owner died mysteriously in the house with his lover, perhaps in a murder-suicide case. Death seemed to follow every owner thereafter. There was a suicide, then a car crash, then a murder, another suicide, another car crash, and then a suicide again, and then a heart attack. After all of that, it's no surprise that locals are now convinced that the Casa Dario is a cursed house. Even those who don't believe in curses have stayed well clear of the house that kills. Here's a little modern one for you guys now at number 9 with water blades. A number of years ago in northern Italy, a panic began to spread about a man known only as Water Blades. He was said to be an evil genius psychopath who would visit water parks attended by children. When nobody was looking, he would install blades in the water slides on the park. On some of them, he would leave tiny small blades that would just cut the people who rode them, but that was just a test. He would then build up to bigger and bigger blades, putting them in places to cause maximum damage to the riders. Legend says that people were left horribly disfigured for life after slashing themselves on these rides. According to the story, the knives were always found, but never Water Blades himself. Some people are glad that this is now a thing of the past, but for others, the damage is already done. People have been scarred for life, and now everyone kind of lives in fear of when Water Blades will return to leave a knife on a whole new ride for people who never saw it coming. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the Casa del Anime. This house in Voltri, Genoa, has a reputation as one of the most haunted houses in Italy. Many years ago, it was run as an inn by a family who all suffered from severe mental disorders. Legend says they would invite passing guests to stay for the night, sometimes even for free. This was all just a tactic though to get them inside. Once they were asleep in their beds, the family would murder them, take their money, and then throw their bodies into a mass grave. They say the souls of the victim are now bound to the house and roam around it during the night, making unearthly noises. For many years after this family's time there, the house lied empty. No doubt the stories had something to do with it. A new family finally moved in after the Second World War, and they witnessed a very creepy event. They said they always saw a young girl walking around the house dressed all in white, asking if anyone had seen her love. Locals believe the girl was engaged to one of the victims, and after he never returned to her, she went to look for him. Now she is doomed to wander around that house looking for her lost love forever. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the Museum of Purgatory in Rome. In a small church in Rome lies a single room known as the Museum of Souls. For those of you who don't know, Catholics believe purgatory is the place between heaven and hell where souls are trapped before they can advance to heaven. The chapel is known as a place where people will go and pray for their loved ones to advance to a happy afterlife. However, things have got creepy over the years, with recorded instances of trapped souls who have appeared to visitors and personally asked them for help. At first it was just eyewitness accounts, but then physical things started happening. There have been photos showing apparitions behind, and perhaps most creepy of all, handprints burned onto the pages of prayer books. If you were trying to get to heaven and avoid hell, perhaps you make yourself known just as much. At number 6 now guys, we have the Witches of Monte Matana. We're heading to Tuscany for this story, and it may either repel or attract you, depending on what kind of person you are. This is a mountain in the Italian Alps which offers hiking by day and witch hunting by night. For centuries, local legends say the area was a retreat for witches to perform their human sacrifices and occult rituals. They say the only reason anyone even knew that they were there was because shepherds would sometimes see flames and bright streaks of fire upon the mountainside. Today you can see a strange shaped rock that they are thought to have used as a table, not in the table sense that you or I know, more of a sacrificial table. Why did the witches return to this location? Well, again, local legend says they hid all of their wealth and treasure there before moving on to another life. Now, people go searching for the witches' treasure. However, there is a problem for any witch/treasure hunters out there. It's guarded by something, apparently. A ghostly spectre holding a huge scythe, exactly like the Grim Reaper. If you find the treasure and manage to avoid getting scythed by a witch's ghost, I guess it's all yours. Moving on to number 5 now, we have Poveglia Island. Just off the coast of Venice you can find Poveglia Island, a place that many locals will never go near. Back in 1348 it was used as a quarantine colony for people who had caught the plague, known as the Black Death. People were sent there to die, with no hopes of being cured. Some believe that so many people were burned and buried there that the soil on the island is now made up of about 50% human ashes. By the 1800s the island was being used as a mental asylum where people were locked up, rarely helped, and often died in anguish. They say that the psychiatrist who ran the mental hospital was a butcher and torturer who tormented the patients for many years. Eventually he went mad from all the guilt and threw himself from the island's bell tower. He survived the fall, but his body lay broken on the rocks. That's when witnesses say he was strangled to death by a ghostly mist that emerged from the ground. Some say this was the island itself, now intertwined with the dark energy of death and taking its revenge. It's no surprise that boats stay clear of Poveglia Island and visitors are few and far between. Moving on to number 4 now, we have Broglio Castle. In Broglio there is a castle that has belonged to the Ricasoli family since 1141. It was owned by Bettino Ricasoli until 1880 when he died of a heart attack in the castle. His body was not buried right away though, but kept near the altar of the crypt in the family chapel. During that time, rumours began to circulate about strange apparitions around the castle. People caught glimpses of spirits walking about the castle as if they were still alive. None of this had happened before Bettino had died. The wind began to blow harder than it ever did for that time of year, opening and slamming windows violently. A swarm of moths invaded the chapel, forcing many of the mourners to flee. However, this was all building up to one single moment. When they tried to lift the coffin up again, it was too heavy. More people came, and more, but it just wouldn't budge an inch. It was like the whole thing was full of rocks. Suspecting demonic forces at hand, they fetched the local priest. He arrived and placed his hand on the coffin, muttering words in Latin for a while. When he had finished, to everyone's amazement, the coffin was suddenly light again. The priest claimed that all of the damned souls in the area had seen the coffin as a safe place to hide and had come from miles around to do so. He had dispelled them from the coffin but unleashed them on Broglio Castle. In the years since then, the souls are said to still wander the grounds there, ready to torment any visitors who disturb them. Next up at number 3 now, we have the Capuchin Catacombs. In this place lie the skeletons or preserved bodies of as many as 8,000 people hanging from the walls or in glass caskets for the world to see. It was started by monks who would preserve their own so that they could pray with them, not just for them. Then locals began to pay the monks for their family members to also be interned in the catacombs so that they too could visit and pray with them. Monks, priests, teachers, professionals, men, women and children are all placed in different categories, hung up on niches or shelves. The Capuchin Catacombs stopped taking bodies in 1920. One of the final interments was that of 2-year-old Rosalia Lombardo. She died of pneumonia. An embalmer used a secret technique to preserve her body over the past 100 years. Visitors are amazed to see just how lifelike she looks after all this time. Sometimes though, she is said to have actually opened her eyes. Scientists say this is just a trick of the light, but those who have seen it would argue otherwise. They believe that the energy of the catacombs have a dark power over the bodies that lie there. For a price, you can actually spend the night locked in the catacombs. I don't know what kind of person would want to do that though, and I don't know what they would do if one of the bodies slowly opened their eyes. Next up at number 2 now, we have Villa Magnoni. This is an ominous looking house located in the otherwise picturesque Italian countryside near the city of Kona. These days the house is almost entirely boarded up, which has led many people to believe the whole place is haunted. One of the only stories that has survived over the years comes from the 1980s. Back then, a group of friends reportedly visited the house and heard children singing in the garden. Great, they thought, I guess the place isn't haunted after all. When they went round to the garden though, the laughing stopped as soon as they turned the corner. There was nobody there. Then they looked up to the house and scanned the windows. They were all either empty or boarded up, except for one of them at the very top. In that window they saw a woman. She was wearing all white, her eyes wide open, and she was screaming at them. She screamed so loud they could actually hear what she was saying. She was telling them to leave. Leave now. The friends ran in fear and then sped away in their car. They actually crashed on the way home, killing 3 out of 4 of them. Months later, the survivor returned to the house to investigate, investigate. He searched inside the house and went up to the window where they saw the woman originally. He froze on the spot. The room from which she appeared had no floor. And finally, number 1 now, we have the ghost of Palazzo Vecchio. In the old city of Florence lies this luxury villa. There once lived a man there called Baldaccio. He was a medieval nobleman and brave warrior who was ultimately betrayed, wrongly accused of treason, and killed inside the palace in 1441. He was stabbed and thrown out of a window, probably on the orders of a rival nobleman. Now his spirit remains in the palace, filled with rage at the people who killed him. In the centuries since then, locals have learned that there's a set of rules to not anger the ghost of Baldaccio. After dark, you should not scream his name, you should not name him without a reason, and you must always speak with respect in a low, hushed tone. The most famous sighting of Baldaccio happened in 2001 when he appeared in the background of a wedding picture taken. Experts said the photo had not been tampered with, only adding to the legend of the angry ghost.